her husband from her previous life taking her to the countryside, however, was an icy killing intent, only to get rid of her and the child in her womb. Reborn and returned, how will she choose and reverse the course of fate? In the palace, the emperor looked in shock at the two powerful nobles before him, Count Shar, Phil, and Prince of Tricas, Let's Buy-It. You both want to marry Heinil? Your Majesty, I have admired Princess Heinil for a long time, and I beg your Majesty to graciously permit me to ask for her hand. Prince Lutz's tone was languid, yet carried no room for doubt. Didn't you say I only needed to choose one I liked among the 5 princesses? The one I like the most is her. The hall erupted in an uproar, and the nobles whispered among themselves. Both the count and the prince have set their sights on Princess Heinil. Chert has long been enamored with the princess. He's the famously romantic count, after all. But as per the terms of defeat, in addition to reparations, one princess must be offered as a symbol of peace. To whom will His Majesty betroth the princess? Heinil knew the answer all too well. After all, this was something she had experienced in her previous life. In her previous life, on a freezing night with wind and snow howling, the carriage jolted. Inside, Heinil, who was about to give birth, was pale and forcibly enduring her discomfort. The maid was both anxious and angry. This is too much. They actually made you, a pregnant woman about to deliver, travel in this kind of weather. People were already criticizing your birth, and he actually cast you aside. He even brazenly has trysts with that mistress in his residence. Heinil's fingertips gently stroked her high, rounded belly. She smiled softly. Don't be angry. I'm very happy to have my own child, as long as I have this child. Before she could finish, the carriage door was yanked open, and the guards urged them to get out under the pretext of fixing the carriage. The moment they stepped down, the maid was blocked. Heinil was roughly seized. Let go of me, she struggled in terror. Have you forgotten that I'm carrying your master's child? I haven't forgotten. A cold voice came from the darkness, and Heinil froze. She looked toward the figure by the cliff's edge. Chert you, why are you here? The man strode forward, gripping her arms in a vice-like hold, his tone twisted. I don't want this either, but Isabel insists on becoming the legal wife, and I'm being forced into this as well. Heinil was forced step by step to the very edge of the cliff. What are you going to do? I still have your child in my belly. The man gave a cold laugh. Heinil, I'm afraid you and this child will have to disappear together. She stared in horror at the man who pushed her into the abyss. Heinil woke up, tears streaming down her face. Her hands instinctively moved to her belly. My child. Where is my child? Your Highness, did you have a nightmare? Her maid's concerned voice sounded. It must be because the palace is in such chaos. After our defeat, the people of Tricas are coming to collect reparations. What do you mean? Has His Highness Bryant come to Shar again? The maid was puzzled. Again? Isn't this his first time here? His Majesty has already promised to give him one of the princesses in marriage as a symbol of peace. He is here this time to take away his bride. Isn't that something from 2 years ago? Heinil froze on the spot. Have I gone back to the past? By the city wall. The nobles watched Let's Buy-It entering the city and whispered among themselves. They say he's a bloodthirsty demon, incredibly fierce on the battlefield. It's because of him that we lost the war and must offer up a princess. I heard His Majesty will let him choose a princess he fancies among the 5 to take away. Though she'll be the consort of a prince, he's not the crown prince and holds no real power in Tricas. His position is delicate. Heinil listened to the rumors. 2 years ago, everyone thought the same and greatly pitted whichever princess would become his wife. However, I know that the crown prince of the Tricas Empire will soon die of illness. And in the struggle for succession, that man, Let's Buy-It, will emerge victorious and become emperor of the Tricas Empire. And the Shar princess taken away as a tribute of peace will become the empress of the empire. Whereas I will die at the hands of my husband, Phil, who claimed to love me, yet took a new lover as soon as I became pregnant. Even though I lost his love, I at least wanted to protect my child. Dea, since there are guests in the palace, I should also go to greet them. Go bring out all my clothes and jewelry. The maid was puzzled. You're already going to marry Lord Count Chert. Why bother going? Besides, Shar has 5 princesses. Would His Majesty really send you to Tricas? Heinil's expression was indifferent. Count Chert possesses mines and is as rich as a nation. For the sake of that enormous tax revenue, Father will certainly grant him the woman he wants. Given the Count's status, marrying a half-princess whose birth mother was a maid is not exactly presumptuous. So Father will make me his wife. After all, that was what happened in her previous life. In this life, she no longer believes in love. It doesn't matter even if her husband doesn't love her. Her only goal, to let the child who never saw the world in her previous life become the future crown prince of the empire, so that no one will ever be able to harm her. Heinil's gaze was resolute. She would rely on her own strength to rewrite her and her child's fate. Heinil's mother had once been a palace maid. She was noticed by the king for her beauty, and after becoming pregnant with Heinil, she became a consort. However, among the 5 consorts, she always lived in constant fear. Thus, Heinil's mother was full of gratitude toward Chert, He did not look down on her humble origin and treated Haineal with particular regard. Haineal in her previous life believed this as well. When he proposed to Haineal, she was overjoyed and deeply grateful. Yet now Haineal had seen clearly what that man would be like in the future. So in this life, she must, at all costs, marry Lutz. Rumor has it he is a battlefield Azura, obsessed only with slaughter. Since he arrived in Shar, he has almost never shown himself, except on formal occasions, as a half-princess. How am I supposed to approach him? On the day after my mother's birthday banquet in my previous life, something happened that I could never forget. A servant stole an item Lutz treasured greatly and was executed on the spot for it. Haineal seized upon this key piece of information that could change fate. That night, she successfully intercepted that servant. The servant flatly denied it, but when Haineal precisely described what the item looked like, the fright on his face betrayed him. Under Haineal's combination of soft and hard tactics, she finally forced the servant to hand over that item. Back in her bedchamber, Haineal lowered her gaze to the item in her hand. Seen up close, it was even more brilliant than she remembered. This must be worth a fortune. Rumor had it this was a keepsake from his late mother, something Lutz treasured greatly and always carried with him. With this, perhaps she could see him, speak with him. If she could catch his attention and make him propose to her. A light breeze passed, and an icy blade was already pressed against her neck. I had intended to find the thief and finish him on the spot. As a princess, I'm very curious why you chose to shield him, so I held back just now. Haineal's whole body trembled. How did you get in here? Suddenly, Lutz's gaze swept to the item in her hand, and his eyes went instantly mad. He lunged at Haineal as if possessed, frightened by that inhuman look in his eyes. Haineal backed away in terror. The two of them crashed heavily to the ground. A strange purplish-red glow flared faintly around Lutz. He snatched the item back in one swift motion. Good thing I found it in time. Any later, and it would have been dangerous. Haineal caught sight of Lutz picking up his sword, and her heart sank sharply. Could it be that in this life I'll be executed by this man under the charge of theft? She hurried to explain. Your Highness, please hear me out. I didn't mean to steal it, nor did I plan to hide it. I only meant to formally pay my respects to you tomorrow and then return it. Then why did you shield the thief and come looking for me yourself? Is that man your lover? No. I was only worried that if you punished him over a misunderstanding, it might spark yet another conflict between our countries. Lutz gave a derisive laugh. Your concern for your country is truly moving. Since you care so much, why didn't you stop your father's foolish actions in the first place and prevent him from invading the empire? I can still smell the rust-like stench from the Shar soldiers I cut down in the war. I understand that Shar should never have invaded the Tricas Empire's territory, and we should atone for the senseless casualties and losses of this war. My royal father has already promised to offer one of the 5 princesses to you as a symbol of peace. Lutz studied her. Exactly. Presumably, he couldn't bear to give up his legitimate daughter Sarah, so he ceded the Canal City and a concubine-born daughter instead. I heard Shar has 5 princesses. Looks like you're one of them. Yes. Haineal raised her eyes to meet Lutz's directly. May I ask if there's a woman you favor? Lutz was taken aback. No, I've never really thought about it. That figured. In the previous life, he'd simply pointed at someone at random out of impatience. Rumor had it he had no interest in women at all. Aside from performing his duty to leave an heir, he and his wife were practically strangers. Yet her child became the crown prince, while my child. Haineal spoke firmly. Your Highness, please choose me. I was planning to formally call on you tomorrow, and then make this request. If you choose me, I will fulfill your every demand. Lutz was stunned at first, then burst into a laugh. After finally winning the war, Father wants me to take a defeated country's concubine-born daughter as my wife. It's been annoying me to no end, but now it's starting to sound rather interesting. Just then, the candlelight suddenly flared. Haineal uncomfortably raised a hand to shield her eyes. Holding the candlestick, Lutz saw her clearly and chuckled softly. Looks like this round of post-war reparations is quite special. There's actually a thinly clad woman kneeling in front of me, proposing marriage. Only then did Haineal suddenly realize how improper her attire was, and her face flushed scarlet in an instant. Lutz's tone carried a teasing note. What are you covering up for? Didn't you say you want to become my wife? Then you should be showing your value and convincing me, shouldn't you? Haineal's brows knitted tightly. No matter what, I have to change my fate here. To stay alive, and for the sake of the child I will one day meet again. Since I need to show my value, I'm more than willing to do so. No sooner had Haineal spoken than her next move caught Lutz completely off guard, making him freeze in surprise. Will this convince you? The candlelight traced the lines of her figure, and the two fell into a wordless standoff. Lutz came back to himself and let out a laugh. You truly are good at rousing people's curiosity. Haineal squeezed her eyes shut and waited. Suddenly, a robe fell over her. Interesting as it is, I didn't come here to look at someone half-dressed. Cover up, otherwise I'll be bored. And tell me your reason. Why go this far? The only reason I've spared your life is because I'm curious about that. Haineal spoke frankly. There's a man who's going to propose to me, and my royal father will likely marry me off to him, but I don't want to marry him. Lutz raised an eyebrow. Then just refuse his proposal, no? I have no right to choose. Unless you, His Highness the Prince of Trikas, first declare your wish to take me as your wife. Sounds like you really despise that man, but this is a dangerous gamble. In trying to escape the tiger's den, you might just fall into the dragon's lair instead. My ill reputation must have reached Shar by now, hasn't it? They say I'm as violent as a wild beast by nature, that once I lose control, I'm like a demon unleashed, a bloodthirsty Azura, who prefers blood and fire to soft, warm beauties. Hyneal's body trembled slightly, yet her tone was ironclad. I don't care, but please promise me one thing. Lutz's gaze turned cold. Hyneal looked straight at him. Let me become the mother of your heir, and as a wife, bearing an heir is my duty. It doesn't matter even if you don't love me. All I ask is that you protect the child I will bear and ensure he becomes your heir. If you can promise me that, I will ask for nothing else. Lutz stared at her. The maids knocking at the door outside shattered the silence. He pinched out the flame with his bare fingers and whispered into Hyneal's ear. Come to the West Palace at noon tomorrow. I'll give you my answer then. With that, he actually leaped off the balcony. Hyneal cried out. That's the second floor. Lutz landed steadily, glanced back once, and walked away in a relaxed stride. The next afternoon, on the way to the West Palace, the maid exclaimed in admiration, Your Highness, you're so beautiful today. Is there something important happening? Could it be that Count Phil is coming? Hyneal smiled gently. No, it isn't. Yet inwardly, she was anxious and uneasy. Will he accept? I can't see through his thoughts. He seemed completely uninterested in me last night. Was it because I was dressed too plainly? Like this today, will it be better? Suddenly, a voice dripping with malice rang out. I heard the Imperial Prince is very handsome, and all the maids are doing their utmost to get close to him. So I came in person to set things straight. I never expected the one leading the way would be a princess of this kingdom. Queen Shar appeared, bringing the other consorts with her. Hyneal hurriedly bowed. The consorts laughed and jeered. It's one thing for the fifth consort to be ignorant and short-sighted, but to have raised a daughter who knows no self-respect either. First, she clings to Count Phil, then she comes to set her sights on the Prince of Trikas. Wasn't her mother promoted back then? By relying on these same tricks? Naturally, the daughter learned it well. Like mother, like daughter, indeed. Her mother had been forcibly taken by the drunken king and spent her whole life mired in filth and disgrace. Precisely because of this, she so dearly wanted me to marry someone who truly loved me. But if she knew I would eventually die at Count Phil's hands, that the ending would be so wretched, she would probably, pardon the interruption. Lutz's adjutant appeared at just the right moment and went straight to Hyneal to bow. Your Highness Princess Hyneal, His Highness the Prince is already waiting in the West Palace. Please come with me. Ignoring the queen's face darkening behind them, Hyneal followed the adjutant away. She met with Lutz. Hyneal bowed respectfully. I offended you in many ways yesterday. My name is. Let's cut her off. Your name doesn't matter. About your proposal yesterday, I have terms. If you accept them in full, I'll take you as my wife. Let me ask you a question. Your fiancé, Phil. Hyneal was puzzled. Fiancé. That's what everyone assumes, isn't it? That Count is widely known to be infatuated with you. Why can't you accept him? If you're here for the status of a prince's consort, then you're miscalculating. Objectively speaking, the life you'd gain by marrying him and becoming a countess would likely be far more stable than by marrying me. The life I need is not some stable, comfortable marriage. Why not? I cannot tell you. Even if I did, you wouldn't understand. Because even if I told you that in my previous life, when misfortune befell me, it was because of him that I died, you still wouldn't believe it. What I want is to serve you as your wife. If you're willing to accept me, I will fulfill all the duties a loyal wife should. After you become my wife, all you'll gain is the empty title of a prince's consort. Beyond that, you'll get nothing. Out of obligation, I'll father an heir with you. But aside from that, I have no intention of excessive interaction, nor of maintaining any unnecessary marital life. Other than matters concerning the child, you may not make any demands of me. Even once we have an heir, that child will not hold any real power for the time being. Those are my terms. Can you accept them? Hyneal nodded joyfully. I happily accept. In her eyes, these conditions hardly counted as anything, and what she wanted most was to have a child of her own. Lutz, on the other hand, hadn't expected her to agree so readily and scratched his head somewhat awkwardly. Good. Then, tomorrow I'll formally propose to you. You should head back for now. Hyneal thanked him sincerely. Thank you. I'll do everything in my power to serve you. A moment later, the maid Dea saw Hyneal coming out of the West Palace and eagerly rushed forward to ask, Have you settled everything with His Highness the Prince? Everyone's so curious. They say it was His Highness Bryant who personally invited you. Yes, His Highness, and I have settled it. Dea gushed over the prince's handsomeness while also fretting that Hyneal's fiancé, Count Phil, might get jealous. Hyneal looked helplessly at the loyal yet clueless Dea, worrying inwardly. She would never have dreamed I'd become the consort of the Prince of Trikas. This road is destined to be harsh, and I don't want to take her with me to that distant foreign land. Hyneal suddenly took Dea's hand. Dea asked in confusion, Your Highness, what's wrong? I just get so nervous whenever I think about getting married. Don't worry, Your Highness. You've got me. Tomorrow I'll dress you up more dazzlingly than anyone. I'll make sure that when Count Phil proposes, he's utterly captivated by your grace and can't take his eyes off you. Heinil gave a helpless little laugh. The next day, Heinil looked in puzzlement at the unfamiliar accessories. I've never seen this set of jewelry before. Where did you find it? Dea said proudly. Beautiful, isn't it? I borrowed it from Her Highness the 5th Consort. She said it was a gift from His Majesty the King, and it'll match your hair color perfectly. Heinil was both shocked and delighted. Her mother had actually lent her the treasured gift the king had given her. She must really want me to be the most radiant one today. She went into the banquet hall. Heinil felt a bit unsure about her outfit. But isn't this neckline a little low? Oh my, and who might this be? A mocking voice drifted over. Heinil looked up at the sound, and it was the king's legitimate daughter, Sarah. So it's Heinil. I almost didn't recognize you after so long. With several princesses in tow, Sarah clearly had no good intentions, and the mockery in her tone was completely undisguised. What's this? Feeling extra confident now that you're about to become a countess. You certainly look different from usual today. Could it be you're worried that if Count Phil sees you looking too plain, he'll change his mind and not propose to you? After taking turns picking on her, the little group left while gossiping. Watching their retreating backs, Heinil only felt utterly drained. Suddenly, Count Chert approached without a sound. I almost didn't recognize you. You're exceptionally beautiful today. Truly breathtaking. His gaze followed Heinil's figure with ill-concealed intent. Feeling uncomfortable, Heinil raised a hand to ward him off. I had no desire to attract your attention. Count Phil, it's been a while. Chert suddenly caught sight of the scar on her hand and grabbed her wrist in a flash, his expression darkening. How did you get this wound? Heinil was terrified. This scar was left when she'd been safeguarding His Highness Lutz's pouch. But why is he reacting this strongly? It's terrifying. It's nothing. I just accidentally got scratched by a tree branch. Looks like I should seriously question your maids. To think they allowed the mistress they served to end up with such a mark. A mark? He sounded as if I already belonged to him. For such skin as fair as white jade to be marred like this on your highness, it's truly a pity. As he spoke, he lowered his head, about to kiss the back of her hand. A wave of disgust and anger surged through Heinil, and she swiftly pulled her hand back. Their commotion drew the attention of those nearby. Chert looked slightly embarrassed. Did I offend you? A clear, bright voice cut in. Heinil, so you were here. His Highness Prince Lutz approached Heinil warmly. I've been looking for you everywhere. With that, Prince Lutz gently took her injured hand. Was this my doing? I'm sorry. He then placed a careful, earnest kiss upon it. Heinil's face immediately flushed red. Their tender moment was abruptly interrupted by Chert, who roughly pulled Heinil back. What do you think you're doing? It seems the northern customs are very different from those of Shar. In Shar, casually kissing the hand of an unfamiliar lady is extremely discourteous behavior. Is that so? This is the first I've heard of it. Still, for people who supposedly care so much about etiquette, Shar not only invaded another country's territory without any declaration, but a mere count even dares obstruct a prince of the empire from speaking to a princess of his own kingdom. Am I to take it that Shar has no intention of forming a marriage alliance with Tricas? Chert was so cowed by Lutz's presence that he couldn't move. For a moment, he was at a loss for words. At that moment, the king of Shar arrived. With a single glance, he saw the two men on the verge of clashing. Prince Bryant, Count Phil. Why are you two? Lutz ignored him and spoke directly. I heard that at today's banquet a princess of Shar is to be given to me, so I'll make my choice now. Chert hurriedly cut in. Your Majesty, I mentioned that matter to you before, and you promised to give me an answer today. I wish to take Her Highness Princess Heinil as my wife. Heinil's heart clenched, so His Majesty had already tacitly agreed to him. Lutz chuckled lightly. What a pity, but what can I do? I'm afraid I'll have to steal the woman you love. The king was stunned. You both want to marry Heinil? Chert replied. She is the woman I have loved deeply for a long time. I humbly beg your majesty to grant me permission to ask for the princess's hand. Lutz lifted his head coolly. Weren't you the one who said I could choose whichever princess I fancied among the five? The one who pleases me most is her. The king was caught in a dilemma. On one side was the prince of the victorious nation, whom he could not afford to offend. On the other was a promise to a count he found hard to break. Prince Bryant, you have yet to meet all the princesses, and you've already set your choice on Heinil. Isn't that a bit hasty? Why not meet them all first, then decide? The nobles whispered among themselves. Why Heinil of all people? Doesn't he know she's just a lowly half-princess? Let's cut off the murmurs. Commander, before I make my decision, this Count Phil must apologize to me. The king was puzzled. Apologize? Did Count Phil offend you? Seems the deterrence I displayed on the battlefield wasn't enough. I could have wiped out the royal palace of Shar entirely and invited all five princesses, legitimate daughter included, back to Tricas. But my father forbade it, so I held back. Yet it appears you don't take me, a prince of the victorious nation, seriously at all. Before I had even finished speaking, this count from the defeated kingdom dared to openly cut me off. The king was alarmed. If the marriage alliance broke down, they'd be in serious trouble. Count Phil, this is a marriage alliance banquet. You are far too rude. Apologize to His Highness at once. Chert was full of resentment, but could only lower his head. Your Highness, I was out of line. Please calm your anger and enjoy the banquet. Let's turn to Haineal. There is only one way I can enjoy the banquet, and that is to marry the princess I have chosen. If so, I might overlook the little count's rudeness. At these words, the hall erupted. Chert's face was as dark as iron. Haineal's mother cried out, Your Majesty, please don't. Lutz interrupted her. I'm not taking her away to torment her. Yesterday, she helped me recover something important. She's as good as my benefactor. Once I bring her back to Tricas, I will certainly cherish and treat her well. After all, she is the only person in this country who has caught my eye. A faint blush rose on Haineal's cheeks. His explanation was gentler than she had imagined, compared to simply being taken away by force. With this reasoning, Mother should find it easier to accept. The king's voice rang out. Haineal Pollock, you must serve His Highness loyally. Remember, you're going to Tricas so that our two countries may live in harmony. Yes, Your Majesty. Haineal rejoiced inwardly. I did it. Chert's expression was utterly vile. Lutz simply found his face an eyesore. The princess was briefly this count's fiancée, so I do feel a bit sorry for stealing his betrothed. Why not take this chance to find him a partner as well? Haineal was startled. He wants Chert to choose a wife on the spot? The king found it a workable idea. Let Chert pick whichever princess he likes. Chert roared. You know full well there is only one person I want. Lutz's tone brooked no refusal. Choose. Under heavy pressure, Chert was forced to decide. He pointed at random, only to choose someone who made Haineal's pupil's contract. She hadn't expected him to pick Lutz's wife from the previous life, Maya. Haineal had never imagined that in this life, she would become Lutz's wife, while Maya would become Chert's. Had their fates really been completely swapped like this? Sensing Haineal's unease, Lutz gently wrapped an arm around her and led her out of the banquet. I seem to have fulfilled your wish, haven't I? Then why that look on your face? Haineal hastily explained. No, I was just so overwhelmed at the thought that I don't have to marry him. I'm really grateful to you. Lutz let out a quiet sigh, then turned and lay down. Good. Seeing him lie down, Haineal asked, Are you going to rest? Lutz complained it was too hot, making him sleepy. She was puzzled. Was it still hot at this time of year? Then again, Tricas was a land of perpetual summer. This might well be my last summer here. Just then, a pregnant couple passed by. Thinking of soon being able to reunite with the child she'd lost in her previous life, Haineal was both excited and heartsick. Without realizing it, tears slipped down her cheeks. Lutz happened to see and looked baffled. Didn't you say you were fine? What are you crying for? Haineal hurriedly wiped her tears. Maybe I started thinking about my mother. Was she the consort who looked so pale when I proposed to you just now? Yes. My mother was originally a maid in the palace and only became a consort after giving birth to me. But she never received His Majesty's favor. Thinking about how I won't be in the palace anymore, I'm afraid life will be harder for her. Lutz suddenly understood. Because she used to be a maid, they call you a half-princess. Haineal answered bitterly. Yes. Lutz frowned. TCH, that's really disgusting. Haineal's heart dropped. Could he be about to go back on his word because I'm only a half-princess? Suddenly, Lutz said something shocking. For a king to forcibly take someone while drunk, how utterly vile. The one who did wrong was him. Yet the innocent are the ones who bear the scorn. This country really has nothing I like, from its weather to its customs. We'll leave as soon as the wedding is over. Before we go, spend more time with your mother. Once we're back in Tricas, I don't intend to come here again. It's hotter outside. Let's go back in. Stunned, Haineal answered, All right. Still staring blankly at the man in front of her, Lutz waved a hand. Why are you still dawdling? Doesn't Shar have any escorting etiquette? Haineal lightly placed her hand in his. And no, that's not it. Thank you. The cold-faced, warm-hearted Lutz reminded her quietly. Don't cry in front of others. Otherwise it'll look like I'm dragging off someone who doesn't want to go. If that happens, all the trouble I went to pretending I'm madly taken with you will be pointless. Haineal was confused. Pretending. Lutz laughed. You really thought all that no one but you will do talk at the banquet was genuine? For the king to hand over someone everyone believes is already betrothed, I have to act like I've fallen head over heels for you at first sight, or it won't seem natural. And this way, it's easier for you and your mother to accept it. At least she won't think you're being dragged off and cry about it. Haineal was amazed. You were thinking of my mother's feelings? The master of stubborn pride, Lutz, denied it at once. I just don't like listening to women cry. Haineal happily thanked him. Watching her smile, Lutz's face quietly reddened. I didn't do this for your sake. I came as a marriage envoy after all, so I want to resolve things without using force. This is the only way. Enough chatter. Get inside. Haineal nodded silently. Back in the banquet hall, Haineal saw Princess Maya standing alone. Maya's mother consort had come from a humble background, and Maya herself was a quiet and gentle girl. Haineal went over to greet her. They exchanged blessings. Maya suddenly blushed. "I'm truly sorry. I never thought I'd be the one to marry Lord Count Phil." "Ah, there's no need to apologize. It was Lord Count who chose you." Maya grew even more flustered. "But you and Lord Count Phil, that's all just rumor. I'm very happy to become the wife of His Highness Prince Bryant. As for you, suddenly having to marry, you must be quite surprised." Maya covered her face, shy yet joyful. Very surprised, but also very happy. "Actually, I've wanted to marry the Count for a long time. I never thought my childhood dream would come true." Haineal's heart gave a jolt. She hadn't expected Maya to truly like Chert. Before she could reply, Chert suddenly appeared, startling her. Forcing herself to remain calm, Haineal said, "My Lord Count, congratulations on your upcoming wedding. I'll be entrusting Her Highness Maya to you." Chert gave a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I don't want to hear congratulations right now. Once I've taken you back, you can say that to me." Haineal was terrified. "Take me back?" This was decided in front of His Majesty. Chert's tone turned icy. "You think I'll just give up? Wait for me." "Haineal, I'll definitely take you away. You're mine." Haineal slapped away the hand he stretched toward her. "Count Phil, you're drunk. I'll pretend I didn't hear any of that." She turned and hurried off, still shaken. "He's not going to chase after me, is he? Why are you sweating so much?" Lutz's voice sounded suddenly, scaring Haineal half to death. But she reacted quickly, grabbing onto Lutz's sleeve. Her voice carried a faint, hard-to-detect tremor. "Your Highness, I was just looking for you to continue our earlier conversation." Lutz took in her panic state, then lifted his gaze toward Chert's direction, his eyes instantly turning cold. "Huh? The way that guy looks at someone else's fiancé is really an eyesore." He suddenly chuckled, a hint of danger in the sound. "Looks like I'll have to put on a bit of a show. Princess, give me your hand." The two of them walked straight up to the king. Lutz said loudly, "My beautiful bride seems to be finding things a bit dull, so I'd like to dance a waltz with her." The king readily agreed. Of course, a marriage banquet can't be without dancing. "Go ahead." But Lutz changed tack mid-sentence. "It's rather boring if it's just the two of us. If the two couples who are about to be married dance together, it should be much livelier." The king was delighted. "All the better. This banquet will surely become a symbol of harmony between our two nations." Graceful music began to play, and the two radiant couples stepped into the dance floor. Meeting Lutz's focused gaze, one that even held a hint of affection, Haineal's heart pounded wildly out of control. She knew he was acting, but that look still made her blush. The nobles whispered among themselves, astonished that Prince Bryant's dance was so elegant and that he was so remarkably handsome. Haineal felt somewhat reassured. So, he wants to publicly declare his claim. "I really hope this makes Chert give up." She turned her head. Why did it feel like the effect was the opposite? Chert's gaze had grown even more terrifying. If this kept up, it would only make Maya's position even more awkward. Lutz's voice sounded. "I can see why you hate that man. He really is disgusting. Even I find him a headache." Haineal said apologetically, "I'm truly sorry. Please bear with it for now." Lutz wore a perfect, professional smile. "If anyone's bearing with it, it's you." As soon as he said that, he suddenly lifted Haineal up in a light, effortless carry. She cried out in a fluster, "Your Highness, put me down." Lutz obligingly set her down, but placed her dainty feet squarely on top of his own. In an instant, the distance between them vanished. Haineal was so startled, she forgot to breathe. Lutz's low voice was laced with a bewitching tone. "I just wanted to get a little closer and take a good look." Haineal's cheeks flared crimson like a sunset. This bold and romantic scene instantly set the nobles abuzz. So northern men really are both daring and deeply affectionate. Look at his eyes. Those two are clearly madly in love. Only Chert was shaking with fury, eyes nearly popping from their sockets. Lutz keenly caught his gaze and curved his lips in open provocation. The next second, he gently cupped Haineal's flushed face, and, under countless watchful eyes, lowered his head and kissed her. Haineal's pupils shrank. This is supposed to be an act for Chert, right? Then why is my heart beating so fast? That one kiss sent the entire hall into an uproar. The nobles and princesses were all blushing and chattering. The battle demon who'd never shown any interest in women turned out to be so forward when pursuing someone. And only Chert shook with rage, grinding his teeth. A few days later, Lutz and Haineal's wedding was held in the temple. Under the witness of the fire god Nuska, the high priest took out willow bark, symbolizing vitality, and wrapped it around their wrists. "It will entwine your destinies, lead you onto a path of blessings that never run dry, and open the gate of the womb." Haineal whispered, "The gate of the womb. This time, I will absolutely protect him. I will never lose him again. Never." She secretly clenched her trembling hands tightly. Noticing this, Lutz asked quietly, "What's wrong? You're shaking like a leaf." "I'm sorry. I must just be too nervous." The ceremony went on, but just as the high priest was about to ignite the willow bark with fire, he suddenly sensed something amiss. A faint aura of darkness seemed to seep from Lutz's body. He immediately ordered someone to bring the tears of the god Nuska. The king asked nervously, What's going on? Is there something wrong with the ceremony? The scene was instantly thrown into commotion. How could there be an evil aura on the prince? Impossible, the high priest solemnly declared. If there truly is dark power within His Highness, this marriage cannot be established. Lutz let out a cold laugh, his eyes turning dangerously dark. This is the first time I've ever been accused of something so absurd. Just then, Heinil noticed Lutz quietly taking out the silver token that he had been carrying in his pouch. He pressed his finger against the metal until blood welled out. Then he said icily, "This marriage is originally a tribute from the defeated Shar to Trickas. If you interrupt the ceremony now, are you trying to shirk responsibility for the war?" But the high priest insisted on verifying the truth with holy water. The tears of Nazca will clearly reveal the truth. Horrified, the king watched as the high priest flung the holy water directly at Lutz. The high priest declared firmly, "All my life, I have upheld the will of Nazca. Ever since I received the ability of a god's child, I have never once misjudged. Now, behold, when the holy water meets the aura of shadow poison, it will erupt in smoke." Yet the result left the high priest utterly stunned. There was no reaction at all on Lutz. Lutz gave him a frosty look. "So, this is your first mistake. Your religious error is none of my concern, but diplomatically, you must pay for slandering me." The high priest tried to argue, but was loudly rebuked by the king. At the same time, Lutz spoke. "Still intent on insulting me further? I'd like this ceremony to be completed quickly." The king urged, "High priest, apologize to His Highness at once, then continue the ceremony." After the wedding, they returned to the West Palace. No sooner had they entered than the adjutant asked, "What happened at the ceremony?" "I heard the king offered 500,000 swin in gold coins as compensation." Lutz, however, immediately said, "We have to leave today, right away." The adjutant was stunned. "But tonight is your wedding night." Lutz irritably tore at his clothes, his expression dark. That damned high priest. No wonder someone who has long served the gods has such a keen sense for impure auras. Looks like he's already noticed something is wrong with me. The adjutant shot up from his seat in shock and asked tensely, "The pouch? You're still wearing it, right?" "Of course. I pierced my hand with the magic crystal just now and let it absorb that aura. That's the only reason my cover wasn't blown, so we have to leave tonight." The adjutant hesitated. "Before we go, shouldn't you at least see His Majesty the King? You think I'm fit to meet him in my current state? Just brush him off with whatever excuse you like." "And what about Her Highness the Princess Consort?" Lutz forced himself to endure the pain. "That doesn't matter right now." Before he could finish, he collapsed in a faint. Elsewhere, Heinil told her mother that His Highness the Prince had sent word. They would be leaving Shar tomorrow. The fifth consort looked at her with reluctant sorrow. "Then that day will be the last time we see each other?" "I heard Trickas is a cold and barren place. Will you really be all right?" "Don't worry, mother. You saw yourself how much His Highness Prince Bryant treasures me." Still anxious, the fifth consort said hesitantly, "Heinil, I've been wondering whether to give you this. My brother gave it to me a long time ago. He said using it would earn me His Majesty's favor." Heinil recalled that in her previous life, when she married Chert, her mother had given her the very same drug, saying that if Chert's heart ever strayed, she could use it. A few months after the wedding, Chert had indeed begun to lose interest in her, in her helplessness. In order to win him back, she used the drug, though she conceived a child. She was never able to share a bed with Chert again, and instead it made him. Clutching the vial tightly, Heinil said softly, "Thank you, mother. You don't have to worry about me. I'll do my best, as the prince consort of the empire, to properly assist His Highness Bryant. Please take care of yourself. I'll write home often." On the day of departure, Heinil waited and waited for Lutz, but it was the king she saw first. The king sternly admonished her, "Heinil, do not forget your duty. I am sending you to Trickas as a symbol of peace. From now on, you must take the lead in preserving peace between our countries and refrain from doing anything that would put us in a difficult position." It seems His Highness the Prince was angered by the high priest yesterday, so he left ahead of schedule. Remember to calm him down. Heinil answered bitterly, "Yes, Your Majesty." To the very end, he spoke to her only as a king, not as a father. The fifth consort, in tears, once more urged her daughter to take good care of herself. Just as Heinil stepped onto the carriage, someone suddenly called her name. She turned and saw that it was Princess Maya. "Elder sister, I never thought we'd be parting this quickly. If I had been braver, I could have spent more time talking to you before you left. I always wanted to get along well with you. But now we may never see each other again." Heinil gave her a warm smile. "It's not too late to start getting along from now. May I write to you?" The two embraced, crying, and Maya answered through her tears, "I'll write you back." After the carriage pulled away, inside, the maid Dea was crying her eyes and nose out, complaining that her own princess had actually thought of leaving her behind. Heinil had originally wanted Dea to stay in Shar, but when Dea sobbed and begged to go with her, Heinil's heart softened and she agreed. Seeing Dea still weeping, Heinil gently comforted her. "Don't cry. I just didn't want you to suffer with me." Sniffling, Dea said, "That's not what I'm crying about. What upsets me is His Highness the Prince. What kind of groom abandons his bride on their wedding night? Even if he's angry, he can't go that far. He clearly cherished you so much yesterday. How could he change overnight? Don't be sad. It's a political marriage. Heinil felt that simply escaping Chert was already more than enough. Just then, Lutz's adjutant tapped lightly on the carriage window. His Highness the Prince asked me to pass on a message. His Highness is waiting for you in Devon City, on Trickes's border. A faint look of expectation appeared on Heinil's face. In time, Heinil finally arrived at Devon City, the Trickes border region under Lutz's control. Once there, she immediately asked, "Where's Lutz? Will he be joining us for the meal? Has he finished dealing with his urgent business?" The adjutant really couldn't keep covering for him, but had no choice except to try again. When Heinil heard his answer, she was utterly shocked. His Highness was poisoned and collapsed? Could it be Shar? The adjutant quickly explained, most likely the work of His Highness Biant's brothers, the ones he doesn't get along with. But the poison was neutralized quickly, so his life is not in danger. He just can't wake up yet. I'm very sorry we couldn't inform you beforehand. It all happened so suddenly. His Highness still needs rest, so we hope you'll sleep in the adjoining room tonight. Also, please don't tell anyone about His Highness Biant's condition. Heinil had never imagined that someone who seemed so strong could be brought down by poison. Meanwhile, her maid Dea was once again indignant on her behalf. Not eating together on the first day of marriage is bad enough, but to make you sleep in a separate room? Thinking this had to be kept from Dea as well, Heinil could only soothe her. His Highness is so busy. I certainly shouldn't trouble him. Dea was dejected, but a moment later her fighting spirit flared up again. Your Highness, I'll sleep outside the door. His Highness the Prince might come looking for you. Heinil burst out laughing at her antics. She thought to herself, as long as I'm with her, no matter what happens, things will be all right. I hope Dea and I can live safely in the north. Late that night, Heinil suddenly felt a chill, sensing someone approach. She thought it was Dea, but in the next second she was grabbed and bound, and the intruder took off with her at a dead run. The masked man's face was vicious as he warned, "Make a sound, and I'll slit your throat." Heinil trembled all over in terror. Whoever he was, he'd slipped past the guards and fled Devon City in an instant, which meant he knew this route very well. But why kidnap her? Where was he taking her? Once they reached the forest, no one would be able to find her. Anyone, please notice I'm gone. At the same time, Lutz had awakened. Elsewhere, Dea, having discovered that Heinil was missing, was desperately pounding on Lutz's bedchamber door, her voice on the verge of sobbing. Your Highness the Prince, please help us. Princess Heinil is gone. On Mount Nuho, Heinil once again relived the dream of her past life. Clad in thin clothes, she felt as if she were about to freeze solid, when she suddenly realized the direction her captor was taking her was actually toward Trickes. In her previous life, Prince Biant and his half-brothers had fiercely fought over the right of succession. Was the one behind this man someone from the Empire? When they reached their destination, the masked man yanked her down from the horse and removed the cloth from her mouth. She had just opened her mouth to ask where they were, when a voice she knew all too well and utterly despised rang out. Your Highness the Princess, I'm so glad to see you again. I told you I would definitely rescue you. You can only belong to me. That familiar presence, that familiar voice. This was Mount Nuho, where she had lost her life to Chert in her previous life. Why am I back here? Am I truly fated never to escape this man? Then my child will be lost again? No. I have to escape. This time I will never let the same fate play out again. Meanwhile, Dea discovered Heinil was missing and hurried to ask Lutz for help. Lutz considered that if he mobilized the knights, word would quickly spread, so he decided to go himself. The adjutant, however, was worried that if even he were gone, others would soon notice that both the prince and prince's consort had disappeared. Then just make up a story. Say the prince has taken his consort on a honeymoon, so she can get used to Trickes or something. The adjutant was speechless. At a time like this, you still have the mind to think of that, but will they believe it? They will. After all, the princess and I put on quite the show back in Shar. And the culprit is either that lunatic Chert or that scoundrel of a third prince. If I fail in this envoy mission, he and his noble mother will definitely seize the chance to accuse me of wrecking relations between the two countries and use that as a pretext to take my life. And the longer this drags on, the more danger Heinil will be in. I have to find her as quickly as possible. Lutz had already sensed something was wrong back when the pouch was stolen. It seemed the other side had failed to disrupt his relationship with Shar, so now they wanted to use losing the princess of Shar as leverage against him. The new empress's two sons. One had taken his crown prince title, and the other would gladly take everything he had left. If everything he had was stripped away, they'd simply discard him without a second thought. So he would never again let anyone take what was his. Elsewhere, Heinil was desperately trying to flee. But how could a noble lady with no strength to truss a chicken break free from a strong, able-bodied man? She glared at Chert in fury, but the man pretended not to notice, taking off his outer cloak to drape it over her and even asking with concern if she was hurt. When he caught sight of the injuries on her body, Chert's face instantly darkened to something terrifying. He had clearly ordered that no flaw was to be left on her. In a flash, a dagger pierced straight into the other man's chest. The man crashed to the ground on the spot. Heinil screamed in terror. Chert, That deranged madman merely said blandly, "Oh dear, I seem to have frightened you, but I had no choice. He not only left marks on you, he also laid eyes on what belongs to me." Chert brought Heinil to his private villa. "No one will find us here. I've been looking forward to our long overdue first night together." Horrified, Heinil shouted, "Are you insane? I'm the prince consort of the empire. My marriage is a political alliance between two nations. If this is discovered, not only you, but even Shar will suffer. Don't worry, this is exactly the result the empire wants." With that, he pressed himself tightly against her. Heinil instinctively tried to dodge, but he seized her ankle. "Don't move. If you keep dodging, I won't be able to hold myself back, and I'll just jump you." She froze where she was, not daring to move again, but her mind was racing. The result the Empire wants? Is this some scheme by the Empire to throw Lutz into crisis? At that moment, Chert saw her spacing out, and his gaze darkened at once. "I'm right here. What could you possibly be thinking so deeply about? If that's the case, I'll just have to do something that makes it impossible for you to be distracted." His eyes churned with near-maniacal excitement, and even his breathing turned feverishly hot. Heinil struggled with all her might. She could not let him have his way. Suddenly, she reached up and lightly touched his cheek. "Chert, I don't like this. It's not romantic at all. Even though the political marriage has made things awkward between us, I know that you love me. I want to fall into your arms too, but I'm so cold right now. Let me warm up first, all right?" Chert instantly blossomed with joy. "Heinil, you're right. I was being too impatient. That man left me in such a sorry state. I want to take a bath and change into clean clothes. Is that okay?" Chert's gaze went hazy and unfocused. "Of course, I'll personally prepare your bathwater." With that, he turned and left, not forgetting to lock the door tightly behind him. Heinil waited a moment, making sure there was no sound, then rushed straight to the balcony. The balcony was very high above the ground. She yanked down the curtains and tied them together strip by strip. A short while later, Chert went upstairs with a cheerful little tune on his lips, beaming as he opened the door, only to see Heinil in the middle of an escape. He flew into a rage on the spot. "What do you think you're doing?" Heinil scrambled over the railing, but the moment she reached the air outside the wall, Chert's hand clamped onto her wrist. In the next instant, he hauled both her and the makeshift rope back in, and slammed her hard onto the floor. The air around Chert went frigid. "What were you doing just now?" Heinil said nothing, only staring him down. Chert seized her by the throat, his eyes surging with fury. "You dare deceive me? A woman born of a maid. You should count it as your blessing that I set my sights on you, and yet you're so ungrateful. I meant to cherish you as a princess, but now it seems you're only fit to be a slave in my bed. Hurry up and learn your place. Your face is injured. What a disappointment. I don't like anything with flaws. I'm going to get some medicine now, and if you dare run again, I'll make sure you remember this night for the rest of your life." On the other side, in order to find Heinil as quickly as possible, Lutz had no choice but to use that power. "Go. Take the magic crystal." It was the beast power that had controlled him since childhood. The farther the magic crystal went from him, the sharper his senses became, able to catch the faintest traces no human could perceive. Found her. By the time Lutz arrived, there was only a man's corpse on the ground. He was about to use his magic again, when he sensed her presence coming from that building. So she was in there, but in the next second, Lutz collapsed heavily. Using that power so often had thrown his inner energy into such chaos that it was almost going berserk. "No, I have to hold on a little longer." Inside the room, Heinil was alone. She was in utter panic. If Chert forced himself on her now, would His Highness Bryant still accept her? Was she really destined to become his slave in this life? No, she couldn't afford to think that way. She had to come up with something. She looked around, searching for anything she could use. Suddenly, there was a sound at the door. Who could it be? She gripped the shovel tightly, ready to strike. With a loud bang, the one who stepped into the room was actually Lutz. Seeing her standing there with a raised shovel, he couldn't help teasing, "You do have a unique way of welcoming people." Heinil rushed over and flung herself into his arms. "Thank you for coming to save me." Lutz's ears turned red from the force of her hug. "Calm down, let's get out of here first." The words had barely left his mouth when he scooped up the barefoot Heinil in his arms. Heinil's cheeks burned, and she gently tightened her hold on him. They had just stepped out of the bedroom when they ran straight into Chert. Chert had meant to draw his sword and snatch her back, but crumpled on the spot under Lutz's oppressive presence. He turned tail and ran off to find reinforcements. Lutz told Heinil to wait where she was and went after him. Thinking backup was close, Chert started shouting again. Lutz didn't bother wasting words. He simply swung his 1.2-meter blade down at him. In just a few blows, he had Chert hacked to the ground. Then, with a single stroke, he sliced off the man's fingers. "Try to keep the rest of your fingers and tell me who ordered you," he said coldly. Chert still kept his mouth shut, so Lutz kicked his teeth out. "Who ordered you? You're clearly waiting for those 11 red-cloaked knights to come save you. Problem is, I've already executed them. They had the bad luck to run into me in a berserk state. Now then, will you talk?" Terrified, Chert cried out. It was third Prince Cairo of Tricas. I only did as I was told. The answer was exactly what Lutz had expected, but laying hands on his wife couldn't go unpunished. So he gave Chert another thorough beating. By the time Heinil poked her head out to look, Chert's face was already swollen into an unrecognizable pig's head. Lutz took off Chert's shoes and told Heinil to make do with them for now. Time is short. We have to leave immediately. Heinil hesitated. We're just leaving him like this. Is that really okay? I'd like nothing better than to kill him, but that lunatic clearly has ties to the Empire. And my father would blame me for failing to protect the tribute, then use the excuse of bungling the peace envoy mission to go after me. Much as I hate it, this is all I can do for now. Besides, he doesn't dare tell anyone the truth either. Still, you've surprised me. After all that, you didn't even burst into tears. I was actually really scared, but you came to save me. At that moment, the adjutant arrived and regrouped with Lutz. Lutz instructed him to handle the aftermath. Then he lifted Heinil up again and set her on the horse. Hold on tight to me. I'm going to ride at full speed, so be careful not to fall. The pace was so fast that Heinil felt like she might be flung off at any second. Her body instinctively pressed closer against Lutz, and her arms wrapped even tighter around him. This chain of intimate contact was almost too much for Lutz, whose senses were already heightened. Once they transferred to the carriage, the beast power still churned inside him, and his disrupted energy refused to settle. He could only shut his eyes and force it down. But Heinil's scent kept drifting to his nose, and she kept unconsciously leaning toward him, making his discomfort grow worse, seeing how bad he looked. Heinil reached out to feel his forehead, but before her fingertips could touch him, Lutz caught her hand in a tight grip. Didn't I tell you to sit still and not do anything? Heinil's gaze dropped downward on reflex, and her face flared bright red in an instant as she murmured under her breath in alarm. Oh my God, in that condition? How could he? I didn't do anything at all. Face burning, she scrambled back to her seat. At once, a thick, charged tension filled the carriage. Trying to break the awkward silence, Heinil said, Your Highness, how did you find me? Your hair ribbon. I found it in the forest. They chatted idly back and forth. When she realized Lutz was still clearly in great discomfort, Heinil suggested stopping the carriage to rest. The two of them arrived at a nearby relay inn. Lutz's men helped him onto the bed, then quietly withdrew. Heinil hesitated, wanting to go over and help, but Lutz spoke first and told her to leave. She was too worried, though, and stayed in the room. Lutz, however, was so disturbed by the intense fragrance on her body that he was close to losing control, even his breathing turning hot. Heinil thought of helping him change into something more comfortable. The moment her hand touched him, Lutz suddenly yanked her toward him, his whole body radiating a dangerous aura. Don't go flaunting the smell of blood in front of a starving beast. Forcing down the desire in the pit of his heart, Lutz said in a low voice, Get out. If you don't go now, I'll make you spend your first night right here. With that, he started to get up and leave, but Heinil softly pressed herself against his back. Your Highness, it's all right, even if we spend it here. She knew very well that Lutz might have saved her only out of duty to the peace treaty, without any feelings for her. She didn't know why, but he was clearly in an aroused state now. She had to seize this chance to conceive his child. Your Highness, I am your wife. I promise to fulfill all a wife's duties, so you don't have to hold back. Lutz struggled to suppress the agitation inside him. He didn't want another loss of control. That would make people look at him like a monster again. I have to push her away. Yet as Heinil moved closer, the raging magic inside him began to calm. What was this warm, strangely reassuring sense of comfort? Sensing that he seemed a little calmer, Heinil said, Why don't you take a bath first? I'll have someone bring food. You've hardly eaten anything. Lutz's gaze went slightly unfocused, and he answered, All right. He had thought that holding a woman would only make him more of a beast, but strangely, that feeling never came. While he was bathing, Heinil stood there shyly, glancing left and right, torn over whether she should step out. Before she could decide, Lutz's voice suddenly came. Aren't you going to help me wash? And you need to bathe too. Why don't we wash together? That'd save time. Heinil clapped her burning cheeks, stammering. Tea together? Seeing her like this, Lutz couldn't help laughing. What? That isn't part of a wife's duties. A flush spread over Heinil from head to toe. That's right. She did want to have a child soon anyway. It was rare that he was actually interested. Lutz gazed at her back, his heart thudding in little fragments. He couldn't understand it. He had seen her body once before, so why did it feel completely different this time? That unfamiliar flutter of emotion felt strangely dangerous, and he clenched his fist. I've changed my mind. You should go out. We'll sleep separately today. Letting a prince and princess consort spend their first night here is too careless. We'll choose another time once we're back at the palace. Heinil froze where she stood. He'd just been so eager, and now so suddenly. If she missed this chance, who knew how long she would have to wait? I already said I don't mind it being here. Whatever you like is fine by me. Heinil thought to herself that it wasn't anything difficult. In her previous life, she had already had a child. Lutz pulled her straight into his arms, and a forceful, slightly clumsy kiss suddenly fell on her lips. Ignoring the water still clinging to both of them, they tumbled straight onto the bed. Under his fierce advance, even with the experience of her previous life, Heinil still felt tense and afraid. Her reaction made Lutz think she didn't want this. Heinil hurried to explain that she was just a little scared. So Lutz showed a gentleness he had never imagined himself capable of in this lifetime. Bit by bit, that gentleness made Heinil lose herself in his embrace. The next morning, Lutz gently woke Heinil. She sat up, her eyes still hazy with sleep. Lutz reached out and brushed her lightly. "Why are there so many marks? Did I do this?" Heinil's face flared crimson in an instant. "The ones on my neck and cheek are from Count Phil. The rest are from you." As Lutz recalled their first night together, his own forceful, domineering advances, his face reddened as well. "Get up and have something to eat first." During the meal, Heinil kept nodding off, while Lutz's thoughts drifted far away, pondering how close he had come to losing control the night before. Was it because he had taken off the magic crystal and let instinct overwhelm reason? But it didn't feel that way. It had been like a beast satisfying its senses through sheer predation. Rather than that, it felt more like being up in the clouds, warm and pleasant. Is that what a husband and wife's relationship is supposed to be? Stop nodding off. I've taken the bones out of the meat. Eat this. The food here isn't great, but it's better than going hungry. They chatted casually as they ate, and Heinil felt they were like any ordinary married couple, and he had been far gentler than she'd imagined. Unlike the rumors, he wasn't that violent. He was even a little cute, but watching her eat so happily, Lutz was already getting restless again. The moment she finished, he scooped her up. "Let's go another round." Heinil was speechless at her own earlier thoughts. Cuteware? He was clearly a crazed beast. In the carriage afterward, the air was tinged with awkwardness. Heinil turned her face away in a pout. Her expression left Lutz at a bit of a loss, and he carefully asked, "Is it that uncomfortable sitting like this? Can you still bear it?" But the carriage jolted nonstop from the fast pace, and when Lutz saw her face gradually pale, he immediately told the driver to slow down. Feeling a bit embarrassed himself, he cleared his throat and explained, "We have enough time so we can take it slow. Even if we're late, we can enter the palace on our own. I already sent word ahead. If we don't make it, they'll go to Tubin themselves." But Dea will be scared out of her wits. Lutz frowned. "You're a princess consort. Why are you still worrying about a maid's feelings? Enough nonsense. Get some sleep." Heinil pouted, her little face flushed, and muttered under her breath, "You're the one who kept me from sleeping." Knowing he was at fault, Lutz shifted carefully, then gently drew her into his arms and let her rest against his shoulder. "Don't talk. Sleep a while." Heinil snuck a glance up and saw the tips of his ears glowing red. She thought to herself, he really is kind of cute. They finally arrived in Hawkwick. Heinil and her maid clung tightly to each other. Meanwhile, Lutz's subordinates looked at him with solemn expressions. Lutz knew full well this kidnapping was tied to the royal family, but he chose to cover it up. Even if they dragged Chertville to the Empire as a witness, he would never obediently cooperate. What's more, in the end, those people would definitely pin the whole conflict on him. No matter how publicly he confronted them, it would never work in his favor. Probably only his death on the battlefield would satisfy them. From this kidnapping, Lutz had at least learned that Heinil was braver than he'd thought. "You really are that fond of Her Highness the Princess Consort, aren't you? I thought the two of you were late because you were feeling unwell. Turns out not. You were just that eager to spend a fiery first night in a place like that. I took off the pouch for her sake and had a few side effects, that's all. Let's go." Heinil watched the snowy scene outside the window with curiosity. She slowly stretched out her hand to catch the falling snowflakes. Lutz stood quietly beside her, watching, while the warmth of that night rose again in his mind. He still didn't understand why he had felt that way. Ever since he was a child, once the demonic energy eroded him, only beastly instinct remained. Even his own family didn't want to go near him. He had thought she, too, would fear him and avoid him. Yet she kept approaching him of her own accord. "No." He clenched his fists, forcing himself to stay clear-headed. No one could be lucky forever. If he lost control, he might very well kill his own wife with his own hands. He must not forget the terms of the marriage. Aside from producing an heir, they were not to develop any feelings for each other. Lutz called the maid down from the carriage. "One more reminder. I told everyone we were late because I took you on a honeymoon, and I very publicly proposed to you in Shar. So we have to act like we're head over heels in love for it to look natural, at least in front of the Emperor. We have to make it convincing. And don't mistake the gentleness I put on for anything real." Heinil answered, all right, in a low, gloomy tone, unable to stop herself from thinking, was his gentleness that night just because he'd enjoyed himself? Of course. He said from the start he would never be interested in me. Suddenly, Lutz handed her a veil. Heinil tilted her head in puzzlement. Is this a rule of the Tricka's royal family? Women can't show their faces before the emperor? Lutz lifted his chin slightly. You can't possibly go in looking like that. Some of those injuries would make anyone suspicious. Heinil hurried to put on the veil. Right after, Lutz handed over a finely crafted gift box. She opened it and froze on the spot. Inside was a gorgeous pearl necklace. It was stunning. Hurry and put it on so I can see whether it covers everything. With the necklace on, Heinil's beauty seemed to reach a new height, so much so that Lutz went momentarily dazed, his cheeks quietly flushing. Realizing he was staring too intently, he quickly cleared his throat to cover it up. A short while later, the two of them walked slowly into the palace. The Empress immediately lashed out impatiently. Why is she wearing a veil? Even after Lutz's explanation, the Empress still demanded that Heinil remove it. Just as Heinil hesitated, Lutz slipped an arm gently around her and met the Empress's hostile gaze head-on. After a brief pause, he asked Heinil softly, and once he had her permission, he lifted one corner of the veil. As you can see, I didn't control my strength. My wife feels embarrassed, so please allow her to keep her face covered. At that, the Empress suddenly burst out laughing. Looks like you've had a taste of women at last. Then keep your veil on, princess. Lutz, I remember well how you ran the battlefields to protect Trickas. Now that you've started a family, it's time you enjoyed some peace. Much as I'd like that, as long as the bloodshed doesn't end. One wife alone probably won't satisfy me. The Emperor's expression shifted several times in an instant, and he hastily changed the subject. Heinil, Princess Bryant, since you've formed a family with the prince, I hope you'll properly assist your husband and contribute to the prosperity of the Tricka's royal house. Lutz frowned and cut in. Your form of address is wrong. Since she's married to me, she shouldn't be called princess anymore. She's also a member of the royal family. Please acknowledge her status as princess consort. Heinil knew he wasn't defending her out of favoritism, but to push back against the royal family that belittled him. The emperor only remarked coolly, the welcome banquet was postponed because of you, and left with the Empress. Lutz clenched his fists. His mother had been a queen in name only. His father doted solely on Psyche. His mother had once hoped that giving birth to him would win his father's love. But when she learned he bore the Tricka's royal curse, she fell into utter despair. In the end, she died of illness, having never received that love. And as soon as she was gone, Psyche couldn't wait to seize the title of Empress for herself. From that moment on, Lutz resolved never again to yearn for unreachable love, so he wouldn't die with regrets. Lost in those memories, he barely noticed Heinil edging closer and reflexively shook off her hand. A little embarrassed, Heinil reminded him, "Didn't you say we have to act like we're in love?" Snapping back to himself, Lutz hastily took her hand again, the one he'd just flung away, and explained once more, "Don't misunderstand. That night was only to back up the excuse for coming back late and to make others believe I'm totally bewitched by you. That's all." Heinil only smiled and said, "You're very wise. I'll go along with your plan and make it look convincing." Looking at Heinil like this, Lutz kept repeating to himself, "That's right. It's all just an act, so keeping things this way is fine." To match the necklace Lutz had given her, Heinil had her maid ransack the luggage, but all they could find was one luxurious, slightly daring gown. To be on the safe side, she draped a shawl over it. The moment she stepped into the banquet hall, she became the center of attention. The gazes around her were all ill-intentioned. A blonde man even went so far as to deliberately spill red wine on her. Her shawl slipped off as well. The one who had come over was none other than the third prince, Cairo Bryant, with a show of apology on his face. Every word out of his mouth was actually barbed, mocking that she had won the second prince's favor and become princess consort only by dressing so provocatively. Heinil looked at him in shame and anger. If she panicked now, it would only land his highness, Lutz, in trouble. So she had to display the bearing befitting a princess and a prince's consort. It seems it's my ignorance of the north that startled everyone. I rushed here with his highness right after our wedding and haven't yet had time to learn the customs of Trickas. I beg your indulgence. It is an honor to meet your highness the third prince and your highness the princess consort. Please look after me from now on." The third prince was choked by her dignified and proper response and could only slink away. Meanwhile, because of his late arrival, Lutz was searching everywhere for Heinil. At last, he spotted her in the middle of the crowd. Just then, Heinil turned, looking at him with a gentle smile. Lutz's heart once more pounded out of control. Softly, Heinil said, "Your highness, the hall is colder than I expected. May I borrow your cloak?" Lutz said nothing, simply removed his cloak and set it over her shoulders, then added in a low voice, "We need to talk." The two of them walked out onto the terrace. Without asking for details, Lutz demanded first, "Why are you wearing something like that?" Heinil's face was full of apology. "I'm sorry. The clothes I brought from Shar are all too thin and don't go with this necklace. I meant to keep myself covered with a shawl, but the third prince spilled wine all over it. So I really am sorry." Lutz glanced at the wine stains on her dress and felt a surge of remorse. "I left in such a rush that I didn't give you time to prepare any clothes. I should have had everything ready beforehand. but the kidnapping left me so rattled that I forgot. It's all my fault. I'll find someone to teach you the customs of trickas and have new clothes made for you. The third prince humiliated you on purpose because of me. Now that you're my wife, this sort of thing won't stop happening. I told you before. Even as a princess consort, you'll enjoy no rights. Life in the royal family will not be easy. I'd already prepared myself for that. And since I was the one who asked you to marry me, I'm willing to bear it all. Then let's go back in. When they returned to the banquet, Haineal looked over the people present. There was Empress Psyche, who had pushed aside the late empress to seize the pinnacle of power, the first prince, who had taken Lutz's position as crown prince, and the third prince, who had seized control of the palace while the first prince lay ill. Within 2 years, all of these people would be dead, and he, Lutz Bryant, would become emperor of the empire. As the two spoke in low voices, Empress Psyche kept picking faults again and again. Lutz finally lost his patience, his tone turning harsh. If I hadn't interceded back then, the Holton, Pime, and Sanders families here today would have been wiped out to the last, when those houses funded the anti-royalist faction. If I hadn't stopped them in time, do you two really think you'd still be sitting here? Just then the emperor, who had arrived, darkened his face. Why bring that up now? Lutz let out a cold laugh. Because the two of you refused to see my wife as family. For a moment, I wondered if you'd forgotten I'm your son. Knowing he was in the wrong, the emperor promised to arrange things soon so that Haineal would be properly acknowledged as a member of the royal family. Not wanting Haineal to keep enduring their scorn, Lutz told his adjutant Evan to escort her back to rest. At that moment, a silver-haired man stepped forward. Greetings, your highness, the princess consort. I am Hakil Lake. Before Haineal could respond, Lutz hurriedly waved him off, telling him not to pester someone who was about to retire. Hakil only teased. Are you afraid the wolves will swarm her? Is that why you're trying to sneak her away early? Lutz ignored the nonsense and urged his adjutant to get her out quickly. On the way out, Haineal glanced back and curiously asked Evan, is he a member of the royal family? Lord Hakil is this country's chancellor. Chancellor? But he looks even younger than his highness. That only shows how outstanding his abilities are. Even the second prince holds him in high regard. Still, His Highness doesn't care for his eccentric personality. Late that night, Lutz dragged his foul mood to Haineal's chambers. Without a word, he pulled her into a tight embrace. Muttering low, he said, I'm really not happy. Don't ever wear that dress again. Those men looking at you, I wanted to gouge their eyes out. It took everything I had not to. So even after he left, people had still been talking about how she was dressed. Haineal patted him lightly. I'm sorry, you've had a hard day. I'll be more careful from now on. Looking at the enchanting Haineal, Lutz lowered his head to kiss her, and the restless irritation in him melted away the instant she drew close. Why did he always calm down the moment she touched him? This was his wife, the one who would stay by his side, fall into his arms, and bear his children. Lutz's affectionate advances turned Haineal scarlet, and she gently pushed at him. Your Highness, with a wicked smile. Lutz replied, we have to have children, don't we? Isn't that what you want to? Flustered, Haineal pushed him away, saying she hadn't bathed yet, and scolded him for getting into bed and going straight to the point without washing. Lutz, finding her adorable, said, then hurry up. Blushing, Haineal kept pushing at him while promising again and again that she'd be quick. Remembering Lutz's thunderous expression earlier, the maid Dea feared her princess might have fallen out of favor. So she took a bottle she had come across by chance, something like an essential oil, and poured it into the bathwater, hoping Haineal would be surrounded by a pleasant fragrance that might lift the prince's mood. Once everything was ready, she left, soaking in the bath. Haineal thought again of Lutz's urgent words, and her cheeks flushed all over again. He had been the one to insist on those things before, and now she. But today he had been targeted because of her, and yet he still turned around to comfort her. Maybe his gentleness really is sincere. Suddenly, there was a sound behind her. The moment she turned, she was grabbed and lifted by the long-awaited Lutz. A storm of fierce kisses rained down on her. Haineal was a little at a loss and pushed him hard, but she saw that Lutz's gaze was on the verge of madness, full of danger, and she couldn't help feeling a flicker of fear. Lutz could no longer focus at all. His sight and hearing felt numb, while his instinctive desire only grew stronger. That fragrance made his brain feel aflame with every breath, sending his sharpened senses into a frenzy. Lutz gripped the magic crystal, struggling to rein in the turmoil. He must not hurt her, even though he did his best to hold back and his movements grew more restrained. Haineal still found it hard to bear. Through tears, she begged him to be gentler and said it hurt so much. Lutz simply could not endure it. She didn't know how much time had passed. Her strength was long since spent. Even as she tearfully begged for mercy, he showed no sign of stopping. Yes, her only duty was to bear his child. Beyond that, she had no right to ask anything of him. Because of his gentleness, she had almost forgotten her duty and place and felt foolish for the way her heart kept fluttering for him. After all she had suffered at Chert's hands, how could she still have been naive enough to hope? In the end, her only value was to produce an heir. Once the child was born, she would give all her love to the child, and that would be enough. After one last violent wave, things finally grew still. Looking at Haineal lying beside him, Lutz was filled with remorse. How had he ended up tormenting her like that last night? Why did he always lose control? Last time it was because he kept taking off the magic crystal to track her, throwing his energy into chaos and making him snap. But this time was clearly different. Was he really, as others said, nothing more than a beast in human skin? Would she be afraid of him too? Avoid him? Look at him with the same disgust people reserved for monsters? He didn't want to be treated that way by her. Like back then, he didn't want her to hate him. He wanted her forgiveness. But why did he feel such a violent desire for her? After that, Lutz got up and gave specific orders to have the food prepared in the Shar style. No sooner had he finished than he noticed Haineal was awake and immediately handed her some water. Haineal paused, reminding herself not to overthink it. This kindness was only something he did after his pleasure the night before. Lutz hesitated, wanting to ask about what had happened the previous night. But before he could finish, Haineal cut him off with a knowing smile. It's all right, I understand. You pretended to be madly in love with me at the palace yesterday, so of course you had to hold me in your arms at night, or people would get suspicious. I haven't misunderstood, and I'll follow your original condition. Aside from the child, I won't let myself have any feelings. Her words were like a hand clamping around Lutz's throat, choking off everything he'd been about to say. Wasn't this exactly what he'd wanted? What was there to be shocked about? He could lose control at any moment, so this really was for the best. Silence hung in the air for a moment. Lutz was the one to break it, asking how she felt. Haineal answered that she was fine, that she had been a bit slow last night, and made him unhappy. From now on, whenever he needed her, she would come to the prince's palace at once. After all, her only wish was to get pregnant as soon as possible. In that case, come to my bedchamber tonight. Steel yourself. Even if you cry like you did last night, I won't go soft. As soon as Lutz stepped out, he muttered a low, guilty curse. Damn it. Just then, a guard came forward, stammering as he reported. When the maids were cleaning the princess consort's bath, they found something like an aphrodisiac. I've never heard of it being mixed into bathwater, but whatever the method, it's still a forbidden drug. So I started wondering, did the princess consort have some wicked idea and try to seduce you? Those words made Lutz remember that he had indeed smelled a strange fragrance in the bath yesterday. So he hadn't been taken over by demonic energy. He'd been drugged. But why would Haineal use that kind of thing on him? Was she afraid he wouldn't have a child with her? If she really used it to seduce him, didn't she get what she wanted? So why had she been so cold this morning? He had no idea what she was thinking. He just wanted to sit down and talk it through with her. Elsewhere, Haineal was in the study, writing letters to her mother and Maya, while Dea fumed on her behalf yet again. Remembering that Haineal still had to go to the prince's palace that night, she asked if they should buy more of the bath oil, since the bottle from yesterday was used up. Haineal's head snapped up, her face full of shock. Bath oil? You put all of that in? That's a drug that turns a person into a raging beast even with a single sip. No wonder His Highness had lost his senses last night. It had been the effect of the drug. Then his true feelings, might they be different from what she thought? Even though she knew she shouldn't hope for anything more, her heart still pounded wildly at that faint flutter. As for Lutz, hoping to make up for something, he especially arranged to dine with Haineal, but after waiting a long time, she didn't appear, and he began to grow anxious. Was she late because of what he'd said earlier? Just then, Haineal finally arrived. Lutz looked at her dazzlingly beautiful figure, springing to his feet on reflex as his heart hammered uncontrollably. Not long before this, Lutz had learned that the mistake of the maid, who came with her as part of the dowry, had nearly caused him to lose control and hurt Haineal. To keep that maid from causing even greater trouble, he had immediately suggested sending her away. Haineal's face went pale in an instant. In that lonely palace, Dea had been with her since childhood, as close as a sister, and had even left her homeland for her sake. How could she let Dea go back to Shar alone? Your Highness, I know she has many faults in your eyes, but she's the only one here I can truly trust and rely on. I'll make sure to teach her properly from now on. Please let her off this once. Lutz froze and murmured under his breath. The only one you can trust and rely on. After a long silence, I'll overlook it this time, but if it happens again, I won't forgive her. Watching his retreating back, Haineal stood there in a daze. His words had sounded harsh, but His Highness really was a gentle person. Perhaps, even if they could never be lovers, they could at least move forward side by side as good partners. The next day, as soon as Dea stepped into the kitchens, she heard two maids chattering excitedly. The princess consort is not only beautiful, she's so gentle too. No wonder His Highness the Prince is so bewitched by her. Their words filled Dea with pride. If her lady was favored, her own standing rose with the tide. She cleared her throat lightly. Is the water for the tea ready yet? What kind of tea is this? One maid craned her neck curiously. It seems the princess consort only ever drinks this kind. Dea straightened her back, her face full of pride. This is Nilnanio tea. Only royalty and nobles are qualified to drink it. She shot the maid a glare. This stuff is worth its weight in gold. Don't even think about sneaking a sip. The maid shuddered all over. If we stole the princess consort's tea, His Highness would probably chop our hands off. It wouldn't go that far, would it? His Highness may look scary, but he's not that brutal. I don't think he's that heartless either. Elsewhere, Haineal was puzzling over how to repay Lutz for not sending Deo away. All she had was a hazy vision of the future. If she could know what was happening in Shar, she might be able to infer more. After her interference, Maya had married Chert. Haineal had no idea how she was faring now. If Chert dared kidnap the Empire's princess consort, he certainly wouldn't treat Maya kindly. Was Maya going through what Haineal had suffered in her previous life? So she decided to write to Maya and her mother to ask after them. And besides, what major events were happening in the Empire at this point in time? His Highness the Crown Prince had died. In her previous life, after the Crown Prince's death, the struggle for succession had officially begun. Although the future might not unfold along the same path, once that battle started, she had to help His Highness Lutz win. But rather than offering simple help, it would be better to drag his rivals down. The third prince was someone who would stop at nothing for the throne. Though Lutz had ultimately triumphed in her past life, the price had been terrible. This time, she wanted to help him keep those losses to a minimum. But how could she topple the third prince? At this time of day, His Highness should be in the study, right? If she thought of it, she should act. After carefully dressing up, Haineal headed for the study. Lutz's gaze was instantly caught by that dazzling figure, but the words he spoke were like a stab. It's just a visit to the study. Did you really need to dress up like that? Deflated, Haineal explained, I was going to see you, so I put some effort into my appearance. Do you not like it? I mean, you look very beautiful like this. Those sweet words made Haineal break into a bright smile at once. Suddenly, he stood and walked toward her. Watching him close and so abruptly, Haineal's heart sped up on its own, and her cheeks slowly flushed pink. Lutz's fingertips brushed lightly through her hair, picking off a little fleck stuck there. Realizing she had read too much into it, Haineal's face burned, and she hurriedly smoothed her hair in embarrassment. How silly, what had she been expecting? Steadying herself, she said, Your Highness, I want to learn to ride. I heard Trikaza's women all love horseback riding, and I think I should learn too, so I won't make a fool of myself in the future. If she wanted to gather information in the palace, she needed to talk with people. And the first step was to change their stereotype of her as the woman from Shar who wore shameful skirts. Lutz nodded, but I'm busy today. I'll teach you when I have time. Ha, you're going to teach me yourself? Do you not trust anyone else with me? Lutz turned his head away and snorted softly. Of course not. Learning to ride meant inevitable physical contact. Rather than watching someone else in that situation with her, he'd rather teach her himself. With that, he ushered her toward the door. Either way, I've decided to teach you personally. You can go for now. The next day, their sweet riding routine began. When Haineal tried gently stroking the horse, her eyes were full of tenderness, and to her surprise, the animal was much softer and more docile than she'd imagined. Under Lutz's guidance, she managed to get her foot into the stirrup. Lutz was just as delighted as she was. In the next moment, he swept Haineal up and set her firmly on the horse's back. Her cheeks flushed at once, and she thanked him over and over. Lutz told her to tug lightly on the reins and try to make the horse move. She gave a nervous little pull. Watching this, Lutz burst into hearty laughter. With such a tiny tug, the horse will never move. Haineal increased the pressure just a bit, and the horse suddenly bolted. Her face drained of color. What do I do? Your Highness. Haineal, calm down. Slowly pull back the reins again and lean your body backward. Eyes squeezed shut in panic. Haineal did exactly as he said. The moment the horse came to a halt, Lutz strode forward, his face full of alarm. Are you all right? Still badly shaken. Haineal forced a small smile. I'm fine, just a little scared. I'm sorry, that's on me. I've never taught a beginner before, so I think I rushed things. Can you get down? I'll support you. He lifted her down securely into his arms. Their eyes met, and the air around them seemed to grow thick with a subtle heat. Inwardly, Lutz cursed himself. Not only had he failed to teach her, he'd almost gotten her hurt. Next time I'll arrange a professional trainer for you. Let's call it a day for now. Watching Lutz's retreating figure, Haineal felt a warmth spread through her. She hadn't expected him to worry about her so much. But if he kept this up, how could she not grow hopeful? A few days later, Haineal went to practice riding again near the hunting grounds. There she unexpectedly ran into the mastermind behind her kidnapping, the third Prince Cairo. Remembering the rumors from her previous life that he had killed the crown prince, she accepted Cairo's invitation to hunt, hoping to gather information. They arrived at the hunting grounds. The open emptiness of the area left Cairo with no chance to show off and made things a bit awkward. Haineal didn't mind at all. Instead, she probed, I heard recently that His Highness the Crown Prince is critically ill. You must be very upset. Yes, my elder brother's illness is extremely serious. Even all the famed physicians haven't been able to find the cause. Looking at the seemingly genuine sorrow on his face, Haineal was reminded of how, in her previous life, he had immediately accused His Highness Lutz of murder after the Crown Prince's death. The certainty in his manner had been as if he already knew the Crown Prince had been killed. Yet in the end, His Highness Lutz was the one who prevailed. She tested him again. So, His Highness the Crown Prince's condition is not looking good. Yes, he's as pale as paper and wasting away by the day. It wouldn't be surprising at all if he suddenly passed. A jolt of dread shot through Heinil. In her past life, the reason the Crown Prince's death had sparked such controversy was that his illness had not been that serious. Was this man lying to her? But if he was telling the truth, then the Crown Prince might die sooner than she remembered. Suddenly, the thunder of hooves rang out, and Lutz rushed over in a panic, barking sharply for Cairo to leave. Cairo quietly picked up his riding whip. As you wish. I'll disappear from your sight right now. In the next second, the whip lashed down viciously on Heinil's mount. Startled, the horse threw her off, its 4 hooves pounding toward her. Heinil cried out in pain and terror, while Lutz sprinted forward, seizing the panicked horse. He asked urgently, "Heinil, are you all right?" Seeing her covered in bruises, Lutz glared in the direction where Cairo had ridden off and drew his sword, ready to give chase. "Your Highness, no. If you go after him, it will definitely erupt into a fierce clash." Lutz's expression twisted with fury. "He provoked me first. Why should I endure it?" Heinil's pupils tightened. She absolutely could not let them start a war early on because of her. The course of this life was already straying further and further from her previous one. What if Lutz died in a clash with the third prince? With a choked plea, she begged, "Your Highness, I don't want you getting hurt because of me. Please, don't go." At that, Lutz's anger vanished in an instant. His cheeks flushed slightly, and he covered it with a small cough. "I didn't expect you to worry about me that much." Heinil's heart lurched. Did that sound strange? After all, they didn't truly love each other. She hurried to explain, "I was just a little worried. I still haven't conceived. If something happened to you, I don't think I could live alone in Tricas." So she wasn't worried for his sake, only afraid she wouldn't be able to bear his child. Lutz's face turned suddenly grave. "Why do you want a child so badly? Did someone pressure you behind my back?" "No. It's not that. It's just, I never really had my father's love, so I've always wanted a child of my own." No wonder she was so desperate for a baby. She was carrying that longing in her heart. It strangely reminded him of his mother, and he pressed his lips together. "Then why choose me? Even if you bear my child, you won't be acknowledged here. You'll only be met with scorn." Heinil lowered her gaze in silence, but inwardly she denied it. "That's not true. You will become Emperor of Tricas. Then my child, as Crown Prince, will be acknowledged by everyone. Even if the future is different from what I know, I will make sure it turns out that way." Seeing she said nothing for a long time, Lutz let out a quiet sigh. "Stand up. You're in no shape to ride like this. Take my horse." The ride back was utterly silent. Suddenly, Lutz spoke in a low voice. "Looks like you've taken quite a blow. You probably thought that after you married me, you'd enjoy glory and riches, but the husband you chose is the man everyone in the palace despises. It's too late for regrets now. You're already my wife." Heinil's arms slowly tightened around him. "Your Highness, I've never regretted becoming your wife. From the first moment I saw you until now, not once." Lutz's body jerked to a halt. His ears flushed faintly red. He thought she must be deeply disappointed with her situation, yet she claimed she had never regretted it. "Then I'll grant your wish and make sure you get pregnant as soon as possible. I'd love nothing more than to show up at your chambers tonight, but thanks to that Cairo bastard, we'll have to wait until you've healed." Heinil started to protest that her injuries weren't serious, but he gently cut her off. "Until you've fully recovered, I won't lay a finger on you. Focus on getting better, understand?" Heinil beamed, her eyes sparkling. "All right, Your Highness, I will." Back at her chambers, after the maids finished bandaging her, Heinil sat alone in quiet thought. A knock suddenly sounded at the door. Lutz pushed it open and stepped inside. He had come out of concern, and, hearing that her wounds were already treated, was about to leave, when Heinil called out, "Your Highness, today I heard the third prince say that His Highness the Crown Prince's condition is very bad. Is that true?" When Lutz nodded, she turned the thought over in her mind. If their friction kept building, they might clash at some point without her knowledge. To prevent that, she needed Lutz to stay on guard against the third prince. "Your Highness, if, after the Crown Prince dies, you were framed as the murderer, what would you do?" Lutz's face darkened at once. "What are you implying? That's not something you need to worry about." With that, he turned and left. On the way, he grudgingly admitted to himself that Heinil had a point. That man absolutely would do such a thing. He immediately summoned Evan and ordered that the Crown Prince's palace be watched and not even a mouse be let through. Cairo may well make a move on the Crown Prince. Startled, Evan asked if they should stop it. Lutz gave a cold little laugh. "Why would we stop him? If Cairo kills the Crown Prince, won't that clear away both of them at once? All I need to do is watch from the sidelines and secure proof." After Evan left, Lutz stared out at the fine rain beyond the window. Then, he quietly made his way to Heinil's bedchamber. He gazed tenderly at her sleeping face. His fingertips brushed her lightly. Then his smile slowly faded. If he lost to Cairo and died, no one is touching what's mine. I won't let anyone have their way. A few days later at the riding grounds, Lutz seemed to have broken through some inner barrier, teaching Heinil to ride with unusual affection. It left her completely puzzled. What's gotten into his highness? Is he putting on a show for others on purpose? She was about to tell him he didn't have to act like this, but Lutz was staring at her in a daze, utterly entranced. Even the horse couldn't stand it and tossed its head a couple of times, forcing him to scramble to calm it down. Flustered and clumsy, the sight made Heinil burst out laughing, flushing to the tips of his ears. Lutz groused, "You're still laughing?" Heinil's eyes curved with mirth. "But it's my first time seeing you so flustered." Her radiant smile only made his cheeks burn hotter. So her smile was this beautiful? He suddenly yanked her closer. The heat in his gaze sent Heinil's heart thudding like a drum. Stiffly, she turned her head away. "No, we can't. Everyone's watching." Lutz glanced around, then leaned down and lifted her off the horse. "Then let's go somewhere no one's around." Not far off, Evan, force-fed and eyeful of public affection, muttered helplessly, "What are these two even training?" No sooner had they returned to her chambers than Lutz eagerly pulled Heinil into his arms. With a soft chuckle, he murmured, "Do you really want a child that badly?" "Yes, I want to have your child as soon as I can." "Good. If I die, I'll need an heir anyway. So hurry up and get pregnant with my child." After that reckless bout, Heinil asked quietly, "Why did you say it just now as if you were definitely going to die?" Gently stroking her hair, Lutz replied, "Don't worry, I won't abandon you here and go die on my own." Heinil's eyes turn misty. "If His Highness the Crown Prince passes away and you in the struggle for the throne, you'll become Emperor of Trickas, right?" Lutz froze. "You must never say that outside. If anyone heard, I'd be charged with treason before they even named me Crown Prince." Heinil nodded softly. "I know." Then she drifted into a deep sleep. Lutz watched her sleeping face and wondered to himself, Emperor? If he became Emperor, Heinil would be Empress, and their child the Crown Prince. Would a man like him, who'd spent his life fighting on the battlefield just to survive, really become Emperor? Ever since he'd met her, it had been one surprise after another. Dropping to her knees at midnight to beg for marriage, saving herself after being kidnapped, every side of her was already engraved in his heart. Heinil Pollock, I'm willing to be anything you want, even an emperor. Several days later, as Heinil rode back from practice, Evan informed her that Lutz had urgently summoned her. Her heart sank a little. With such urgency, had something gone wrong for him? The moment she stepped inside, Lutz ordered Evan to present a chest. When the lid opened, Dea's jaw dropped, and Heinil couldn't help but marvel as well. Inside lay a beautifully crafted silver fox fur cloak. Taking it in his hands, Lutz said, "This is especially for you, so don't think of returning it. It suits you perfectly." Heinil was about to apologize for her misstep at the last banquet, but Lutz raised a hand to cut her off. The next moment, she turned her head in confusion, only to see rows of maids stepping forward, each bearing a gift box. There were luxurious gowns tailored to her measurements, and a dizzying array of diamond jewelry. Heinil could only gasp in shock. These were treasures she'd heard of, but never seen. "If you don't like them, just say so. I'll prepare more." With a spring-bright smile, he added, "Since you've already put on the cloak, come outside with me. There's something even more special out there." The moment she stepped outside, Heinil clapped a hand over her mouth in astonishment. Is that? In front of her stood a gentle, fine-bred horse adorned with pink diamonds, her own personal mount, chosen by Lutz. He invited her to try riding it, and when she hesitated, Lutz simply lifted her onto the saddle. Heinil hurried to thank him. Lutz's gaze was soft as water. "Well, does anything feel uncomfortable? Want to ride around nearby?" The tenderness in his voice and eyes made Heinil's cheeks feel ready to explode. She stammered, "And maybe next time. I'm not used to riding in a skirt." Seeing how red her face was, Lutz frowned with concern. "Are you feeling unwell?" Flustered, Heinil said, "It's probably just that the cloak is too warm." "Then let's get you back quickly." With that, he gently lifted her down from the horse. Grateful yet feeling undeserving, Heinil thanked him again. Lutz pulled her into a firm embrace. "You're the princess consort. This is nothing more than what you're due. Since you want me to become emperor, once you're empress, I'll make sure you receive even more precious gifts every day. I'll make you the most splendid, noble woman in this country." Then he slowly lowered his head and pressed a kiss full of longing to her lips, drawing their hearts ever closer. That day, Heinil received not only Lutz's gifts and sincerity, but also letters from her mother and Maya Bakenshar. She read her mother's words of longing through a blur of tears, and only calmed down after her maid soothed her. Wiping away the tear tracks, she opened Maya's letter. "To Her Highness, the Princess Consort in Trickas. I was overjoyed to receive your letter. All is well between me and Count Phil, though we haven't been together long. He treats me with great care. The Count has been busy lately after discovering a new mineral. He was badly injured, too, but he hates others bringing it up, so no one knows why." Heinil felt a quiet surge of relief and joy. It seemed Maya was doing well too. May she never have to go through the things Heinil had suffered. Heinil discussed with Dea sending Maya a reply along with fine Trickas wine and cloth. So she planned to ask Lutz's opinion and tell him about Chert's mine at the same time. To her surprise, the study was empty. She went to the bedchamber instead, but there was still no sign of him. The attendants awkwardly tried to cover for Lutz. Just as she was about to leave, a voice from inside called, Come in. Entering, she looked around the bedchamber, which was as dim as the study, full of confusion. I only feel at ease in the dark, came Lutz's voice, making Hainia look up in surprise. Lutz wore an amused expression, like a snake that prefers damp places. But you probably can't understand that, can you? That's not true. I felt the same way. Back in Shar, the bright, luxurious queen's palace felt completely wrong for me. Just standing at the door made me uncomfortable. At the time, I thought of myself as a frog that belonged in a dark swamp. If I wanted to survive, I had to go home, as expected of husband and wife. It seems that unless we change our births, neither of us will ever escape the swamp. Why don't we just hide in the shadows of the bedchamber together? Hainiel's cheeks instantly flushed crimson, her voice barely more than a whisper. But it's daytime. Lutz's warm breath brushed her ear. In here, you can't tell day from night. The words had barely left his lips before he pressed a searing kiss to hers. His unique steadiness and gentleness deepened between their lips and tongues. After a moment, he slowly let her go, his eyes a little hazy as he asked why she had come. Hearing she wished to send gifts, he said he would draw up a list for her to reference. Hainiel's eyes curved with a smile as she thanked him again and again. Suddenly, let's change the subject. By the way, has Cairo been approaching you lately? That guy seems to be plotting something. Be careful around him. This jolted her memory. In her previous life, around this time, Cairo had launched his rebellion even before the crown prince's death. Seeing her face change, Let's asked, "What is it? Did that bastard really come bother you again? If he so much as comes near you, tell me. What's mine isn't something anyone else can lay hands on." His blunt, unvarnished words filled Hainiel's heart with warmth and a deep sense of security. "Your Highness, I've had a letter from Shar. It mentions that Chert seems to have discovered a new mineral in his mine. I don't know if it might be connected to the third prince's schemes." She thought this explanation shouldn't seem strange. She had heard of it in her previous life as well. She still didn't know what the mineral was, but later rumors had said Atrika's prince nearly died because of it. Clearly, it wasn't ordinary. Lutz never doubted her for a second. "Then we'll have to investigate what kind of mineral it is first." That made Hainiel quietly rejoice. Wonderful. If he decides to trade with that mineral, he'd do it through Baisa, wouldn't he? Baisa? The Canal City Shar paid as reparations? Trade traffic there is heavy. Keeping an eye on it might give us a lead. I'll have Evan get on it right away. Seeing her message delivered so smoothly, Hainiel bowed and turned to leave. Watching her retreating figure, Lutz thought to himself. He'd assumed she was ignorant of the world from being cloistered in the palace, but she knew quite a lot. Baisa was indeed a bustling hub for merchant deals, so he would take her advice and turn Baisa upside down if he had to. No sooner had Hainiel returned to her chambers than she received an invitation to the Empress's afternoon tea next week. This left her stumped. Back in Shar, she had hardly attended such gatherings. Besides, they all seemed to dislike her, but she was Trikaz's princess consort. She couldn't keep cowering. If she went and embarrassed herself, it would shame His Highness. She immediately ordered Dea to find out what the Empress and the other princesses consort liked. The next day, Dea returned with the news. The crown princess consort loved reading. The third prince's consort was obsessed with gemstones, and most surprisingly, the Empress was very interested in martial arts. After thinking it over for a long while, Hainiel decided to ask Lutz for help. Lutz indulgently told her that money was no object, and to choose everything at the highest level, simply informing the head lady-in-waiting of what she wanted. On the day of the tea, the carefully prepared gifts were delivered on schedule. Just as Hainiel finished dressing, Lutz came over, handing her a delicate brocade box. When she opened it, inside was an extremely rare taphite ring, shimmering with shifting light. Wear it there. Doesn't the third prince's consort love jewels? Let her be properly jealous. Once she's envied it enough, you can then bestow the gift you prepared for her. Lutz spoke with a sly look, but his tone was gentle. Your hands are so fair they make the taphite shine even brighter. It's truly beautiful. His words sent blood rushing to Hainiel's face. Stammering, she said, "I should be going." Lifting her skirt, she all but fled the room. The garden scenery along the way was beautiful, and Hainiel couldn't help glancing around. But the matron at her side reminded her, "Your Highness, Princess Consort, you must keep your eyes forward as you walk." When she arrived, the Empress and the other princess's consort were already waiting. Hainiel had barely sat down after her greeting. When the Empress spoke, "Is there some problem between you and the second prince?" Hainiel started. "No. His Highness treats me very well." The Empress's gaze turned cold and sharp. "I've heard the two of you share a bed every day. So why is there still no child?" Hainiel's expression darkened. She did see His Highness every day, but they didn't always sleep together. And even if Lutz had an heir, that child would be an obstacle to her. The Empress had raised it only to pick a fight. Her hand moved unconsciously to her lower abdomen. In truth, she was longing to conceive as soon as possible. Second princess consort. The call snapped Hainiel out of her thoughts, and she quickly answered, "You should have your body examined for any problems." Without waiting for a reply, the Empress turned to the crown princess consort. "Have you been taking proper care of the crown prince? I hear his health is getting worse." The sudden question made the crown princess consort tense up. She quickly lowered her head and apologized. The heavy, oppressive air made Haineal increasingly uncomfortable. After thinking it over, she lifted her head with a smile. "Your Majesty, the Empress, I've prepared some small gifts for the three of you." She motioned to the maids. "This is our first gathering, so I wanted to bring presents." The third prince's consort let out a derisive laugh. What kind of gifts could they be? Just traditional trinkets from Shar, I'm sure. Oh dear. It won't be one of those revealing dresses, will it? That sort of thing is hardly fit for public occasions. Don't worry, it's not a dress. Haineal replied calmly. "I've heard your Majesty is highly skilled in the martial arts. This is a sword specially commissioned from the finest smith in Tricas." The moment the Empress opened the box, her eyes widened in shock. "This is a Hansdon Marcel blade. No one matches his skill in smelting. You must have gone to a lot of trouble." Seeing the softened expression on the Empress's face, Haineal rejoiced inwardly. Choosing a sword had indeed been a wise move. Next was the Crown Princess Consort's gift. "I heard you love to read. This is a work by Automil, the great master of the humanities." When the third prince's consort took her box and opened it, her eyes lit up, her excited voice trembling. "A Tophite necklace. Is this really for me?" Her joy lasted barely 2 seconds before her gaze flicked to the ring on Haineal's hand. "But compared to the ring you're wearing, third princess consort, mind your decorum." The Empress cut in coolly. Inwardly, she clicked her tongue. So little self-control, so childish. Still, it seemed Lutz truly doted on this woman, and her taste in gifts was impressive as well. Time and again, she defied expectations. The Empress would have to keep a closer eye on her. Noticing the Empress's softened attitude, Haineal felt a quiet thrill. At this rate, she might truly be able to gain a foothold here. But the most important thing was to grow closer to the Crown Princess consort, so she could learn more about the Crown Prince's condition. "I hope we can meet often from now on." The Empress showed a rare smile. "Good. I'll arrange gatherings regularly." After that, Haineal and the Crown Princess consort began exchanging visits more often and became kindred spirits in books. Lutz, however, warned her uneasily. "You must be cautious in all things. The Crown Prince, like Cairo, is my political enemy." Haineal quickly agreed. "I'll be careful, but Her Highness the Crown Princess is very kind, and she often tells me news of the Crown Prince." Lutz paused. "News? Yes. I heard that the Crown Prince's illness has worsened rapidly of late. If His Highness passes away, the third prince will surely act. Of course, it's his chance to seize the position of Crown Prince. But, Haineal, why are you so intent on being wary of Cairo?" Haineal hurried to explain that she was only worried. Hearing this, Lutz quickly pushed down his doubts, blaming himself instead for not being strong enough to protect her. Haineal hesitated, then softly called, "Your Highness." Lutz cut in with a smile. "You don't have to fret so much. I'm watching their movements too. If you keep worrying, it makes me look unreliable, doesn't it? Don't worry, I'll always be by your side." Yet the shadow of her previous life still clung to Haineal, and she remained afraid of Chertville. When alone, she feared he would barge in again, and even woke from dreams too anxious to sleep. "Haineal, a report came in today. They've found people secretly selling minerals in Baisa. Could it have something to do with Count Phil? We're not sure yet. We could seize them at once, but we should first trace the channels. For now, we mustn't startle the snake." "Have you learned what kind of mineral they're selling under the table?" "They say it's some kind of explosive ore. Its danger level isn't clear yet." Haineal's face went pale. No wonder Chert had been so delighted. If it was explosive, it could surely be turned into a weapon, right?
Exactly.
But we don't know its power. If Count Phil and Cairo join forces, they'll have no trouble turning it into weapons and using it to raise funds. In either case, it poses a threat. So you need to make preparations. Lutz answered. All right. Haineal was quietly pleased that he had taken her advice to heart, but the unease in her chest remained. Had Chert also joined forces with the third prince in her previous life, it would have been hard for Cairo to beat His Highness, Lutz alone. All the more reason this had to be handled carefully. "You're making that face again. Don't worry, I'll strike before Cairo does." Only then did Haineal's tense expression ease, a gentle smile blooming at her lips. "Yes, Your Highness." After Haineal left, Lutz drank alone. Her image floated up in his mind, and he sighed inwardly in quiet wonder. In the past, he would have brooded over his troubles as he drank, crushed by the weight of pressure. Now he felt almost no anxiety. He had never trusted anyone, yet somehow, he wanted to trust Haineal. A few days later at the training grounds, the Empire's youngest, most handsome chancellor, Hakil Lake, suddenly appeared. Lutz couldn't stop himself from grumbling. "What's a hothouse flower like you doing in a dangerous place like this?" Smugly, Hakil handed over an imperial decree for a military inspection. Lutz glanced through the decree. Hakil only grinned and showed no sign of leaving. "Out with it. What are you really here for? How about a deal with me?" Lutz fixed him with a steady stare for a few seconds, then led him to a quiet corner. Dropping all pretense, Hakil came straight out with it. "The third prince has been using convalescence as an excuse to make frequent trips to Loxent, that frigid, silent place." Lutz's expression tightened. "Why tell me this? If you want a deal, you must want something from me as well." My demand is actually quite simple. I want you to bring Tricka's peace and prosperity. Leaning closer, Hakil murmured, let me tell you a secret. I think you'll be this country's future emperor. But then, he added a cold condition. If you ever endanger the empire, I'll change my mind at once. Lutz could only press a hand to his forehead. Anyone listening to you would think you were the emperor here. Hardly. I'm only speaking plainly to guide everyone onto the right path. As for the third prince, I've tried to hint things to him more than once, but he never took the slightest notice. So, I'll be wishing you success in inheriting the throne. Please devote yourself to bringing peace and prosperity to this land. Once they had reached an understanding, Lutz hurried off to find Heinil. Today Hakil told me that Cairo has been going in and out of Loxendafen. It's very likely he'll plan his rebellion there, and Hakil says he'll support me as successor to the throne. Heinil's heart dropped like a stone. So, the third prince really was about to move. In her previous life, Lutz had been blindsided and nearly destroyed, but now that they knew in advance, they could prepare. And with the Chancellor backing His Highness Lutz, he shouldn't be so easily sabotaged by Chert this time. Then what about the mineral Chert discovered? I've already ordered people to buy it up at a higher price and take it from those men. Once we have proof that Cairo is plotting rebellion, we'll make our move to stop him. Have you told His Majesty the Emperor? Lutz fell silent. So, you don't plan on telling him?
Right.
Until I have solid proof. I'll work in secret. One wrong move, and our whole plan could be exposed. Still, you know quite a bit. We only learned the key points about the mineral thanks to you. Such ready praise made Heinil flush at once. Turning her head slightly, she murmured, it was nothing. I only did what a wife should do. Good thing you don't regret marrying me. If we weren't married, this could have turned into a disaster. Thanks to you, some of the things that used to weigh on me seem to be lifting. In the instant their eyes met, they saw only each other. Heinil's heart skipped a beat. Was His Highness truly opening his heart to her? If so, she didn't want to let his feelings go unanswered. She didn't know how far she could go, but she wanted to try doing more to help him. Your Highness, if you're going to leave the palace to investigate the third prince, I'll stay and get closer to the third prince's consort. When no one else is in the palace, he might send her instructions after all. Watching her so fired up, Lutz couldn't help a laugh. I thought you were a soft, easily flustered girl. I didn't expect you to have such a capable side. All right, give it a try. The third prince's consort likes ice fishing. You can use that. I'll be off. Heinil watched his departing back, silently grateful for the complete trust he'd placed in her. A few days later, third Prince Cairo, citing disputes among the people in the northern regions, was granted permission to leave the palace. The succession struggle that would decide the empire's fate was about to begin. Lutz had come to tell Heinil that Cairo had left the palace, and that he had to set out at once to track him and gather evidence. But seeing the attachment she couldn't quite hide in her eyes, he couldn't resist teasing. From that look on your face, you don't want me to go, do you? And no, it's not that. I'm just afraid you'll be hurt. Why don't I make you a waist charm? I've heard there's a Tricka's custom of braiding silk cords into ornaments to pray for someone's safety. It was the first time anyone had cared for him in such a detailed way, and Lutz's cheeks flushed instantly. I'll have Evan get the silk threads and bring them to you. Heinil answered softly, eyes lowered, her heart full of reluctance. After today, she might not see His Highness for a long time. Once he found proof of the third prince's crimes and reported it, war would surely follow. As she was lost in thought, a voice sounded at her ear. I can't bear to leave you either. So before I go, we should spend as much time together as we can, don't you think? In an instant, Heinil understood, and her face flared bright red. In the next moment, Lutz gently tipped up her chin and lowered his head to press a kiss full of reluctance to her lips. Their breathing slowly grew uneven, and as their eyes met, a tender smile curved at the corners of Lutz's mouth. I'll have hot water prepared right now. Or would you rather wait until tonight? Heinil stared at him in a daze for a moment, then suddenly leaned up to kiss him back, shy and clumsy. She wanted to stay with him a while longer, just a little longer. The two of them clung tightly to each other, bodies pressed close. In a haze, Heinil gently pushed Lutz away. You must take care of yourself. Her words filled Lutz with quiet delight. Don't worry. Even for your sake alone, I'll come back safe. Still, if getting hurt a little meant I'd have your devoted care, that wouldn't be so bad either. Heinil snapped her head up, half angry and half anxious. Your Highness, she scolded softly. His fingertips brushed the faint flush at the corner of her eyes. I'm only joking. Seeing you react like that just makes me want to tease you even more. Moments later, only the soft, scattered sounds of the two of them remained in the bedchamber. The next day, Evan brought the silk threads, but staring at them, Heinil could only frown in thought. Yesterday, she had confidently said she would braid a waist charm for His Highness, but she had never done any kind of needlework or cordcraft before. What should she do? Should she ask the crown princess consort for help? No, doing it with her own hands was what gave it meaning. Whatever happened, she had to at least try. After many false starts, she finally finished the charm, only to find it so ugly she could hardly bear to look at it. She had wanted to do something to help him, but with this, she couldn't possibly give it to him. Could she? Looking out the window, a wave of restlessness washed over her. Was His Highness already preparing to leave for Luxembourg? Just thinking that he might be hurt made her heart ache, as if it were being wrung. No, His Highness was going to capture the third prince himself. She had to work hard too, and do what she could in the palace to help him. So Heinil asked her maid to send word to the third prince's consort that she wished to see her. The third prince's consort was baffled. What was Heinil up to now? She had always been glued to the crown princess consort. Had she been cast aside and decided to come curry favor with her instead? Tell her I'm grateful for the invitation, but I'm far too busy and really don't have the time. Meanwhile, Lutz, using problems with border trade as a pretext, smoothly obtained permission to leave the palace. Once outside the gates, he rode hard for Luxembourg. On arrival, he ordered his men to remain in place, and alone followed the leads Hakil had given him, to search for the hidden base where the third prince kept his private troops. A faint, almost inaudible sound reached his ears. Lutz slipped behind a tree and slowly leaned out to look. His pupils constricted sharply. Faced with such devastation, what on earth had happened here? Elsewhere, Heinil was despondent at being unable to help Lutz. Just as His Highness had pinpointed the hideout of the third prince's private forces, their target had already moved on. She tried to meet the third prince's consort to sound her out, only to be turned away at the door. His Highness had told her not to mind, but she still wanted to do something for him. Perhaps she should go to the temple and pray for him. Maid Dea, however, felt it was inappropriate. Shar served the god Nuska, while the temples of Trikas were dedicated to Drazim. But I can't go back now. If I can't even pray, I'll brood myself to death. Seeing her like this, Dea finally gave in, saying she would ask the chief lady-in-waiting about the proper dress and etiquette for visiting the temple. Watching how Dea stayed by her side through everything, Heinil couldn't help but smile. The following day, Heinil arrived at Trikaz's temple as promised. On the way to the prayer room with a junior priest, she caught sight of a towering pavilion through the window and couldn't help asking what it was. That is the inner sanctuary. The young priest replied respectfully, "It's Drazim's holy dwelling. Inside are prayer rooms and ritual chambers only the high priest can use. Even His Majesty the Emperor may not enter. If ordinary people step inside, they might lose their lives. Please be very careful." Just as he finished speaking, a figure suddenly drew near. Heinil turned to look. The newcomer's posture was tall and straight as bamboo, his features so striking they seemed to steal the soul, even his loose hair as though meticulously carved. High Priest Hamal Sia himself. She stared, momentarily entranced, until he came close enough to jolt her back to herself. She quickly bowed. After they exchanged formal greetings, Heinil made to withdraw, but the high priest suddenly spoke. "Your Highness the Princess Consort is a remarkable woman. You seem delicate, yet there is a steel hidden in your bones, as if you've already transcended some invisible shackle." Heinil's heart gave a violent tremor. What did he mean by that? Forcing down her panic, she said, "Thank you for your kind words. I'll go and pray now. You're welcome anytime. Please visit often." She agreed quietly, but thought to herself, as expected of the high priest, "It feels like he's seen right through my secret." Elsewhere, in Lutz's study, Chancellor Hakil reported that he had found evidence and obtained the third prince's full confession, but asked that Lutz take him along when he presented it to the emperor. Lutz was surprised. "I thought you hated this kind of troublesome matter the most. This concerns a prince of the empire plotting rebellion. Besides, His Majesty has always favored the third prince, hasn't he?" As expected, the next day in the throne room, the emperor was stunned to hear of Cairo's private army. It may be a bit presumptuous to say so, but if we let this go, who knows what His Highness the third prince will do next? Pressing a hand to his throbbing forehead, the emperor turned a heavy gaze on Lutz. "Can you bring him back?" "Of course. So long as you command it, I'll see him return to the palace as soon as possible." As soon as the order was given, an attendant came to inform Heinil that His Majesty had learned of the third prince's private army and ordered His Highness Lutz to march out the next day and escort him back, which would likely take a month. And His Highness said he'll come tonight. He also instructed that all the servants wait outside, so no one will disturb the two of you. Color flared over Heinil's face in an instant, and even after the attendant left, the heat refused to fade. They had already shared a bed several times. How could she still react like this? Anyone who saw her would find it strange. No, she had to stay calm tonight. The night deepened, yet Lutz still hadn't come. Just as Heinil was thinking of him, a familiar figure appeared before her. She quickly went back to sit on the bed, silently chanting to herself, "Stay calm, stay calm." But the moment she saw Lutz, her heart still pounded uncontrollably. Tonight, Lutz was especially gentle. Even his voice had softened. "Just thinking that I won't see you for a whole month starting tomorrow makes me really reluctant to leave." "Me too." Heinil looked at him, her eyes shining. "I'm so tired." "Then you should rest." A smile curved at the corners of Lutz's eyes. "Only if I tire myself out and go to bed early. Will I be able to get up at dawn tomorrow?" Then he pulled Heinil into their usual suite Intimate routine. Afterward, nestled in Lutz's arms, Haineal remembered her daytime encounter with the High Priest. Your Highness, what kind of man is he? He's so much younger than I imagined, it was shocking. Lutz let out a low chuckle. That old man has to be at least 130. When I saw him 15 years ago, he looked exactly the same. Judging by your surprise, he hasn't changed a bit. 130. How is that possible? Most likely by relying on divine power. That's also why even His Majesty doesn't dare cross him lightly. But I heard he owes the royal family a favor. They say exterminating monsters was originally the temple's duty, but when they couldn't handle the endless hordes, the royal family intervened instead. And as a result, the royal house was cursed by the monsters. Cursed? Unease crept into Haineal's voice. Lutz patted her lightly in comfort. It's just a rumor. No one takes it seriously. Sleep now. We have to rise early tomorrow. Even so, an inexplicable sense of dread welled up in Haineal's heart. Your Highness, you must come back safe. Pulling her tightly into his arms, Lutz said, Of course. I still have a devout wife praying for me. Don't worry, just wait for me to return. The next morning, as Lutz adjusted his armor in front of the mirror, he caught sight of Haineal's miserable little face in the reflection and couldn't resist teasing. Why do you look like you're about to cry? Because I'm really worried. Don't be. We've already pinpointed their location and laid traps at the expected point of conflict. In terms of strength, we definitely have the upper hand. But Haineal still frowned. Your Highness, if you feel things turning against you or sense danger, just run. Lutz laughed. Instead of saying that, something else would be more helpful, like a charm that grants strength. Haineal's eyes lit up. That's right. Don't leave yet. Please wait a little. I'll be right back. Unable to rest easy, she turned back to remind him again. You must wait for me, all right? Looking at the woman who held him so dearly in her heart, Lutz's smile grew so gentle, it almost overflowed. A short while later, Haineal came running down the corridor. His Highness hasn't left yet, has he? She pushed open the doors and stumbled into Lutz's line of sight, panting. Lutz laughed softly and reached out to smooth her messy hair. While I'm gone, you're the mistress of the prince's palace. You can't be running around like a child. He held out a hand. Give it to me. A faint flush colored Haineal's cheeks and she mumbled, If you don't like it, you can give it back. Lutz's fingertips traced the uneven surface of the charm. Why is it so bumpy? Are you hinting at my rough life? His eyes crinkled in amusement. But I like it very much. Will you put it on me yourself? Yes, Your Highness. Rising on tiptoe, Haineal carefully looped the charm around Lutz's waist. The posture was almost like an embrace, and she felt acutely self-conscious. But had she really done that bad a job? Why was everyone staring so intently? In that languid, almost decadent atmosphere, the charm was finally fastened. Just as Lutz turned to give the order to depart, a carriage came racing up. As soon as the wheels halted, the Empress flung the door open and jumped down in a panic. Second Prince, wait, this must be a misunderstanding. Cairo could never do such a thing. A cold smile touched Lutz's lips. Those are words for His Majesty, not me. Or is His Majesty refusing to see you? The Empress shook with fury. What did you do to trick His Majesty? You're the one who lured my son into a trap, aren't you? I understand your worry as a mother, but slandering me without grounds puts me in a difficult position. There's no need to be too anxious. As long as Cairo surrenders quietly, I might show a little mercy. With that, he raised his voice in command. Move out. As the column was about to depart, Lutz suddenly paused. Right, I nearly forgot. Haineal, thank you for the gift. May the gods hear your prayers. In that brief moment of gentleness lay all the love and reluctance in his heart. Go inside, he said, his voice so warm it hardly sounded like him. Then the great host of troops surged forward and rode out. Standing there, Haineal prayed silently in her heart. Your Highness, please come back safe. Beside her, the chief lady-in-waiting said, You're truly a Tricka's woman through and through now. So, very enthusiastic. Bewildered, Haineal looked at her in confusion. The lady-in-waiting's face turned scarlet in shock. Don't you know? In Trickas, red and white together are a declaration of love. Your charm is braided from red and white thread. So, everyone staring at me thought I was confessing to His Highness? Oh my God. Pressing her burning cheeks, Haineal seethed with shy indignation. His Highness clearly knew what color she'd chosen. How could he not say a word? That was going too far. And out on the road, astride his horse, Lutz's usually cold features were soft with tenderness, a barely hidden smile of happiness playing at his lips.